Chief Craig, would you like to lead us tonight in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could just take a moment to remember many of our friends, Joe Watt, who passed away this last week, and may she rest in peace. Please be seated. Denise, roll call, please.
Councilmember Cassidy? Here. Councilmember Hernandez?
Here.
Councilmember Sampson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Olson?
Here.
And Mayor Marshall?
Here. Announcements? Are there any announcements?
No, I don't have any.
Okay. Written communications?
I have none.
The only written communication that we got via email was from Pam Albers. I believe you all got that. And Leslie Warner. Okay. City manager report.
Mayor and Council, briefly, the City Attorney will report out on our meeting, just briefly on our meeting today with representatives of Southern California Edison. I wanted to mention that there is a letter that was sent to the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development in Washington, D.C., Mr. Julian Castro, who's seeking advice and funding for city infrastructure projects. There was a letter sent out to Oscar Gonzalez, State Director of Farmers Home Administration, for funding for city infrastructure projects. We are working also to update the bylaws for the city's housing authority to address shortage of workforce and affordable housing, and also to come forward with you with a strategy in regard to the use of the housing authority. Also, I'm pleased to report that Ms. Ratty and I met with representatives of the Island Company recently. We discussed a number of leases that has long been between the city and that we lease property from the company. I thought the meeting was productive. I thought it was informative. I thought it was great progress was made, and we hope that by the 20th of this month we will bring forward a conclusion with some recommendations with regard to those leases.
Fantastic. Thank you. City Attorney report.
Yes, as the city manager indicated, the city manager, myself, Dennis Azage, met with about 8 or 9 residents from Edison today for about an hour and a half to discuss water options in terms of what is possible, what our recommendations are. As you recall, the council tasked our law firm with looking at water and coming up with some suggestions. So we had a preliminary discussion with Edison on those concepts. They seem to be generally supportive of it. There's a couple little details that we need to work out, but we will come back in 2 weeks from now at the next council meeting with our firm's recommendations on water options. And so stay tuned. But it was a good, productive meeting.
Excellent. Mayor reports. Anybody like to start?
No, thank you.
Mayor report?
Oh,
Councilmember.
he goes, no, thank you. Councilmember report.
I have a couple ones.
Good.
I'll be attending the Gateway Cities Council of Government meeting and Transportation Committee meeting tomorrow. I did attend Edison's Phase 3 public water meetings that they had, I believe, on the 24th. And I also attended the Island Company's community forum that was held, I want to say, the 29th. And the only question was in hopes that we could get an update from BB&K as to when Elizabeth Hole would be able to come back and give us the presentation on options of housing development and the findings after going out to bid with what the city has as assets. Do we have any idea when we'll be hearing that?
We would need to. We still are in the process working with the city manager of scheduling interviews with those firms so that we could come to council with a recommendation as to which one of those. As you recall, council action was to direct us to solicit firms that develop low-income housing. We solicited those proposals. We received 4 proposals, and now it's just a process of going through those proposals and making a recommendation to the council as to which one of those developers we think will work best with the city.
Do we have is there any timing on that? Do you know?
No, we'd have to, again, I'll have to work with the city manager to schedule those interviews, and then Elizabeth will be here. Probably the earliest would be, because next meeting will be heavy water, so the earliest it would be in first meeting in October.
Okay. Okay.
And then just my concern with that, with the cart and the horse situation a little bit. We don't have land number 1, and we don't have water number 2. So I guess, well, I never saw I couldn't understand the urgency when we really didn't.
Well, one of the requests that was made during that initial sending Elizabeth out was the assets that we currently have and the money that we have.
Right.
So we have the East Whitley property. We have some funds. How much of the funds do we have? What can we do with that property? Can we, what can a developer help us accomplish with that property to make that into viable housing rather than stay empty? So all of this is, my understanding, was part of what we were requesting when she went out with all of the city's assets and including land,
East Whitley.
East Whitley, and money.
And then they would, at this point, we would just be selecting someone to work with staff who
Right.
is that entity that does this for a living. And then at that point, once that firm is selected, then we would be working with the city manager on the actual solutions and recommendations for specific properties options.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
That's all I have. Yeah.
I'd just like to make a shout out to all the city workers during the long weekend. They seemed to do a good job. A lot of people in town, all the trash was picked up, all the city workers were out working very hard. And just want to give a shout out to all the departments, county also, and also want to give out fire department, harbor department, all the city crews.
Thank
Did
you.
a great job this last weekend.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you.
Councilman Sampson?
I have nothing today.
Nothing.
Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
This weekend, the contract cities will hold their fall conference on Catalina Island. This will be the first time they've been back in 36 years. Yeah, 36 years. Contract cities are a group of cities that contract for services as we contract with the Sheriff's Department. Also, some cities contract with County Fire. But they'll have a little meeting. There'll be probably 120 people over here. There's going to be a recognition of our supervisor's dinner on Saturday night. So it's going to be kind of cool. It'll be fun. And we'll save travel expenses for those of us that are going to attend.
That's all?
Yep, everything
Okay.
else.
Thank you. Likewise, with Cindy, we attended the Island Company and the housing meeting and all of those, so that was really great. I will just be making the welcome at the Contract Cities meeting. Got some other obligations. I had the opportunity to go on Carnival Cruises Imagination a couple of weeks back, and was fortunate enough to meet with the Captain Lenaro and the hotel director, who was quite lovely, and chief engineer, assistant engineer, and security, and whatever. It was a wonderful experience. They talked highly of Avalon. We talked a little bit about shore boats, which was very positive. We talked a little bit about the birthing facility, which he seemed to know nothing about. So I asked him to go home and ask about that. I know. Yeah, but that reminds me of well, never mind. So anyway, it probably would be a good dialect since he's got to be the one to pull up. But anyway, but it was a wonderful trip. The weather was beautiful and everything was fine. And the only other, and I went to the closing ceremony of the yacht club on Saturday, which was quite lovely. But another thing I wanted to bring forward, and I don't know in how we want to go about this, but there have been 3 minor accidents on Catalina Street in the last week, from rearview mirrors or side mirrors being pushed off, somebody running into the back of somebody else, and another one. And maybe, I'm not putting Doug on that, but it seems like there were 3 incidences. I'm very concerned as we go forward with the Vons and as we're looking at this whole situation, that street is very narrow. And I'm concerned for the well-being of our e-bus also. So at some point, and however the best way to go about this, I think you know, and I know they're doing some modifications to the UPS and all of that, but I'm very concerned that as we start to dig dirt, and now big vehicles will be coming as well, it's going to be really even tighter. So, again, I'm kind of taxing that to you, city manager, and Scott is making a nod.
One of their conditions of approval is before they start, they have an approved traffic plan. That traffic plan will involve construction as well as when they're operating. We don't have that traffic plan. So
Well, I keep hearing things that what they did initially, and that was enough. So there is something else.
there are a number of items on their conditions of approval that they have to bring back to the city before they can
Dig or do anything?
it says they're all conditions of approval. The way I read that is a condition of approval to start construction. And starting construction, in my opinion, is digging.
Okay,
As
so-
they were talking about, we had the little update talking about demolition starting. And I don't think there was a date. I'm just really concerned it's congested, and so as long as we're on top of that, I'm fine.
Madam Mayor, we share the opinion that all conditions have to be met as a precedent to any construction on the site. No permits will be issued for construction on the site until the conditions are met as approved by the City Council. I also believe that as you said, that traffic is going to be an issue that we're going to have to look long and hard at in order to ensure safety for all parties in there, and we will do that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Okay, presentations. The first do you just want me to go ahead, Denise, or are you supposed to say this?
Please go ahead.
Okay. First presentation is a proclamation for Constitution Week, which will be celebrated September 17th through the 23rd, and recognize the 229th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America. And therefore, I will read. Whereas September 17th, 2016 marks the 229th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through 23 as Constitution Week. Now therefore, we, the Avalon City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of September 16th through 23rd, 2016 as Constitution Week, and we ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. Dated this 6th day of September 2016 by the entire Avalon City Council. Okay. And item number 2 is the Avalon Sheriff's Bear Program. And we'd like to start with Captain Federal.
Where'd the bear go?
Mayor, Councilmembers, thank you very much for allowing us to be here on the Federal and Avalon Sheriff Station. I hope to bring a little levity to tonight's meeting. And this is a huge honor for me to be able to be part of what we're doing at the station. And when I say we, I'm speaking specifically about one of my deputies, and I'll introduce him in just a second. But I'd like to recognize several young adults that we have here in the audience with us. There's going to be 12 kids from the school that have completed our most recent Youth Activities League program. We've got Dr. Kathleen Van Antwerp from the Sheriff Youth Foundation, who oversees all the Youth Activities League programs across the county, and she's taken her time to come over here to recognize what is being done here. But first and foremost, what I'd like to introduce is Ken Yanechko, a deputy who came here earlier this year. He started, and he'll explain the program, a bicycle program for the kids. It took off in LA County and went nationwide, and we're blessed to have Ken over here putting on the program for our kids in this community. So here's Ken Yanechko.
Great. You're electrifying.
Well, thank you all very much for that. My name is Kenyon Etcher, like he said. I've been on the farm for 29 years. I've been teaching bicycle tactics for over 20 years throughout Southern California. I developed this program in 2007 and ran it down in the cities in South LA, Compton, etc. for about 5 years and taught almost 2,000 kids. So just to give you a brief overview of what the program's about, we take confiscated bicycles, and with the support of the Youth Foundation, we get new parts for those bicycles, and we put them through a 5-week program to learn how to rebuild bikes. And it's basically a mentorship where they learn to have a good relationship with law enforcement. And at the end of the program, they get a bike, they get all the parts, they get the helmet, and it's all theirs to keep. So that's their reward. So with no further ado, I would like to give you guys the first dozen graduates from the MERE program over here on Avalon. So whoever wants to give out the certificates. No, yeah, the bear's also there. Where's the bear?
Where's the bear?
Where's the bear?
We have our
Lost
bear
the bear.
mascot.
In the park, stealing picnic baskets. Is that the new park?
Bring in the bear. So that was the bear last time.
This is one of our sergeants, Gary Rossi.
You know, before we hand these certificates out, I'd like to say how proud I am of these kids. You guys got some amazing kids here, and it's pretty awesome. So many of them actually want to be law enforcement, different careers like that. And if you ask them those questions, they're very free to tell you exactly what they need to do. No tattoos, no drinking, no smoking, all those things. So it's very cool to hear those things coming from these children out here. So thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to teach these kids.
Thank you.
No.
Okay, well, and we shall bring our bear up.
Yeah, bring the bear over here. He's a little hot. Thanks, I'm going to be
Okay, we'll bring, I'll just, first young adult is Mateo Silva.
Clapping the mic.
Justin Rios. Edwin Rios. Andres Silva Rios. Eric Madriz. Andrew Madriz. Joe Leon. Eduardo Zavala. Juan Carlos Ramirez. Andrew Alcala. Christopher Otto. Angel Rivas. Emmanuel Perez. Okay, well, congratulations, and Councilmember Cindy Magoo and Cassidy also did all of the participants this evening. We're all very proud of you. Thank you.
While it's incredibly important to recognize the success of all the young people, we also need to recognize the mentors who have brought this to life. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Youth Foundation is about connecting law enforcement in a positive way to young people in the community, and Deputy Ken has done that above and beyond. So from the Office of Sheriff Jim McDonnell and from the Sheriff's Youth Foundation, myself, Dr. Kathleen Van Antwerp, we want to honor you with a certificate of recognition for what you've done for the young people.
Where's Jordan? He never lets that happen.
there, guys. You get on the stage if you want.
All right, everybody say bear. Bear. Great job. Thank you.
Bear is being escorted.
The bear is.
This way, Bear.
These microphones are hot tonight. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's.
Thank you.
Okay, that's.
Thank you.
That's for the projector. Yeah, and 2 new speakers.
Very good.
Oh, we have a little balancing quality.
Thanks a lot, you guys.
Oh, that's by the. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Don't forget stop signs.
Don't say what you're going to say. Don't say.
I will hold my tongue.
I guess we're still on, huh? Okay. Oral communications. This is where the members of the audience may approach the bench, and no action will be taken on non-agenda items, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Adeline Young with Southern California Edison. I just want to let you know that we have concluded our public outreach regarding the activation of Stage 3, and today is the first day of Stage 3 mandatory water rationing. I do want to let Avalon water customers know that those currently in the middle of their billing cycle will still be under Stage 2 water conservation levels. So the Stage 3 rationing for those customers will start at the beginning of the next billing cycle. So September is National Preparedness Month. This year's theme is Don't Wait, Communicate. The American Red Cross has several easy family preparedness steps. Step number 1 is to get or put together an emergency preparedness kit. You should include enough food, water, and medical supplies in your emergency kit to last at least 72 hours. And you can personalize your kit by putting your favorite canned food or personal items in. Step 2 is to discuss the kit rules with the family members. So once you put together the kit, make sure that everybody knows where it is and that the items are only to be used for emergencies. So if you want some water, don't take the water out from the kit. Go to the kitchen and get your water. Step 3 is to make an evacuation plan. So the Red Cross suggests that you just take a map and a highlighter and just select 2 or 3 destinations and the routes to get there. Step 4 is to be informed and to know what natural disasters can affect your area and what to do in the event of one striking. So I have sample family disaster plans in English and in Spanish from the American Red Cross. I've placed it out over there, and it will help you put together a disaster preparedness plan. So I would encourage everybody to do one by the end of this September. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Paula Patterson, 221 Whitley, and I was able to attend the evening Edison presentation about the state of affairs and going information regarding Stage 3, and it was very informative and very well done. And there were so many things that I wish I had a copy of the presentation they gave, but I kind of walked away having a few more questions, and I know this is what you're working the hardest on of anything. So while you're doing that, there were a couple of things that came to my head that I'm going to say to you, and it would be something, I was hoping that they'd be here tonight and we could ask. But Leslie did bring up a great question. What is production capacity as opposed to actual production that are coming out of the desal plants right now, which is kind of interesting. We know what they can produce, but what actually are they producing? And then the second one was, I noticed that that the reservoir, though we all know that the reservoir is not really, unless it's so complex. So they're not really feeding Avalon for the most part unless both of those desal plants are not running. That it went down 4 acre-feet in a week. And they showed graphs that were talking about commercial as opposed to residential usage, and they're pretty much comparatively, they're almost the same. There's very little difference between commercial and residential. I find that impossible. I don't know how that can be. So my question is, are rentals on the island considered commercial or residential? I would like to know that, because I think how we evaluate what happens there when we have places that are rented 40 weeks a year, is that commercial or is that residential?
I can answer that. They are residential.
Well, then that seems something's awry there. I mean, it's not, the parity is not okay. So those are my two big questions. And then I just want to put to the council, you were talking about traffic on Catalina. I see impending issues. I've done a lot of research because I couldn't figure out what the deal is with the deer. And I think it's really becoming to the point of it's taken over the town and could present a health issue. I just saw one run right by there. Golf carts going by, and I didn't understand why we don't do anything. And then now I know that it's they are Fish and Game. We have absolutely no control. But could we not, as a city, go to Fish and Game or write them a letter or say something? And I don't know, maybe this has all been done before, but I cannot believe that Fish and Game, this is like no other place on earth. There are no natural predators for them here. And it is unbelievable now. I don't know. If anybody ever wants to call me or talk to me or anything, because maybe there are things I don't understand about it, but I feel so sorry for them. They suffer, and it's not okay. How many we have. They're starving, they're disease-ridden, and it's really a shame. So anyway, that's all I have to say, and thanks, you guys.
No, thank you very much. And I believe we can follow up with that in some way.
Mayor Marshall and City Council. My name is Tina Newhart. I am a teacher at the Avalon School. I am a commuter teacher, and I'm here tonight on behalf of all of our commuter teachers to let you know how much we have appreciated the new electric Garibaldi bus, and just a little something for you guys.
Someone's mic's too hot. Can you turn that down, please?
Sure, please. Woo!
Oh, thank you.
So it's signed by all the commuter teachers and
Oh
our
my
principals.
God, that's absolutely beautiful. Who's the artist?
I did it.
Oh.
Very nice. Very nice.
Great.
That is really nice.
Tina, thank you. We will hang this proudly.
Okay, good.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for supporting us, being able to support the children.
Yes. Okay, Tina? Oh.
We'll take-
I don't want to cut off Ollie's head. Here. There, let's- Thank you. Thank you. Oh, Tina, thank you for taking your time to come to tell us.
Put
That's
it up in your
awesome.
office. Put it up in your office.
Yes.
So sort of following up on the good comments regarding water, I too was at the meetings with Edison, but I kind of came away with a different take. We know that the reservoir is going down because Hamilton Cove feeds off of the reservoir, and we also know that the reservoir is going down between 85 and 100 acre feet a year. And we also know that even with the implementation of stage 3, Edison is all telling us, don't worry, because you're already only using 40% of baseline, which means we're not going to see any savings or reduction in the draw-off from the reservoir. And as I've said repeatedly, and in an email that I sent to you, no one is looking at the impact of all of the water loss on the aquifer. If the aquifer collapses, it's not going to matter. And our tariffs are tied to the level of the reservoir. So no matter how much desal water you produce, you're still going to have the problem of, let me see, we're at 139 acre feet, and if we use exactly the amount that we used this year, which it takes into account the amount of rain that we got this year, in an El Nino versus a La Nina year, which they're predicting, 86, the math takes you to 53 acre feet by September of 2017. That doesn't even take into account the permitting time it takes for anything that you're going to do. And so I hate to say it, but you've thrown it over to the legal counsel, which I don't really understand. They're not engineers. There's no discussion of the public who's very educated about water as to what this great plan is. But I happen to know that it's just we're going to put all our eggs in one basket, we're going to go get another desal unit, and that's going to be the salvation. And hello, it's not. You're going to be in stage 4 in September of 2017 unless you solve the problem of Hamilton Cove feeding off the reservoir, or you get some water into the reservoir. And it was clear that Edison has considered this issue, but they weren't willing to share with the people who took time out from their day to attend the meeting, who are the ones that are, not taking showers, not watering their plants, couldn't even give the courtesy of, well, where in the pipeline are you with this Hamilton Cove connecting them to the desal? How much is it going to cost? Who are you proposing to pay for it? Because apparently the $500,000 that we kicked in that we were going to get back, we're not getting back. I found that out today. So the $500,000 that came out of our reserves are not going to be repaid, and we're now looking at other potential dips into our already depleted reserves. So I think that there needs to be public discussion at the city council level about what's being planned. It's not good enough to keep coming back every 2 weeks and say, well, we had a good meeting with Edison and we're on it. Because I'm sorry, you're not. You're not on it. And the longer that we all act like it's all being taken care of, the further along the reservoir dips and the further trouble we're going to be in. And if we go into stage 4, all of the work that's been done to increase our tourism is going to be for naught. So I'm just hoping, that we can put more minds together, more open communication. I feel like we put $1 million of tax money into the new desal. It's not right for Edison to say you're not entitled to the information as to what that desal unit is making, how much of it's being used versus what's coming out of the reservoir. That is a publicly funded piece of equipment that is vital to what's going on in this town. Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate your comment.
Vote Pam to be water czar. Someone needs to take control of this. Thank you for letting me come this evening. As you may or may not know, the Hermosa Hotel has recently had a meeting with the Planning Commission. 2 minutes before that meeting, I was given a copy of an email on city letterhead. Somebody full of hatred went to the sheriff's department and obtained our emergency, the Hermosa Hotel's emergency call history, and in a failed attempt to soil our name and defame our business, this was given to all of the Planning Commission members. I received a copy of it 2 minutes before this meeting. The city manager was taken into these evil actions. He's a good man, he does a good job. But it was a secret meeting between a council person and the city manager that took this information and put it on city letterhead and submitted it to the Planning Commission. This was done to damage my business. Now, a couple of you guys are independently employed, and a couple of you still work for companies, but just take a second. And how would you feel if there was a secret city meeting with the city manager and a despot city council person whose main objective was to damage your business? That's their business. That's their job. That's what they set out to do. That was their intent. Okay, my hotel's 120 years old. It's older than the city. It pays a humongous amount of taxes every month. It pays all kinds of real estate taxes and water bond taxes and sewer taxes on an annual basis. We are active participants in this community. This must stop. It's up to you, the city council, to provide leadership. We rely on the city council to make sure that the city is fair and honest, and that the public meetings, including the Planning Commission, are not hijacked by evil staff members or elected officials. The intent of obtaining the sheriff's data was solely to damage the business. This should be a crime, and if not, if someone gets fired, for sure there should be censured. This person who did this should not be allowed to vote on things specifically for our property, but I say all hotels because I'm starting to see the big picture here. The city manager should not be allowed to cover for his staff or any of you when you do something wrong, because wrong is wrong. Just tell the truth. And I say that because for days the city manager tried to hide the name of the despot who did this evil deed, who lives in hatred and looks forward to damaging businesses. I work with the staff, and everybody who works back here seems to be tops. Real professional and caring people. So it's upsetting when you see an elected official do such dirty work and ugly hatred. It's an embarrassment to the whole city and to the city staff. This was not something submitted to the Planning Commission's information packet. This was something that was slid into them just before the meeting in an attempt to soil the Hermosa. This wasn't a local citizen, as I was first told in the emails from the city. Oh, it's a citizen. Then I got another email. Oh, it's just a resident. Believe me, if there's a little old lady who lives on Metropole and she hates me and she doesn't want to face me, okay, great. Let it all be anonymous through the city manager, and let's take care of this little lady. But when it's an elected politician, when it's one of you guys who go out of your way to do this scum-sucking, this miserable hatred of damaging someone else's livelihood, that can't be tolerated. Now, the information received is going to be analyzed, it's going to be worked. There's a lot of questions that really wasn't accurate, and I'm working through that. And when I get to the summation of this sheriff's information on all properties that are similar, I'm going to come back and report to you about what hotels are really safe and which hotels are not safe, etc. However, the basis of this was this evil actions, this dirty work that was done deliberately to hurt my business should not be allowed to continue. And for that reason, I ask that, and I'm here to answer any questions about it. I've got tons of information. In short, I ask that you put on your agenda for the next meeting the opportunity to vote for a censure to stop Cindy Cassidy from this hateful, backbiting sleaze that she's involved with. I ask that you put it on your agenda so that you can talk about it and see if maybe she shouldn't get, like, you can smile all you want, but what you did was despicable, bringing the city manager and Captain Doug Federal into it. Thank you very much. Any questions?
The theatrics are unreal.
No questions.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Hi there. Pete Edwards, 117 Beetaloo. I'm up here because I'm completely pissed off. I've been pissed off for a while. I came up to a meeting a while back when we talked about personal decel units and kind of unraveled. I couldn't believe the lunacy of the what was going on. I'm kind of reduced to just condescending sarcasm. It seems like that's all I got left here. The personal decel unit seemed like a fairly simple solution at face value for somebody that wanted to kind of take charge of their own situation. It appears that there's, I guess for lack of a better description, if you'd made phyllo dough out of lawyers, that would be the blanket covering the personal decel situation. It seems impossible to uncover. Now, currently here we have an electrical shortage as long as we don't make any electricity, but we seem to make as much electricity as we want to use. And so there is no shortage, and it's no damn different than making water. So construction is always the industry of a lot of things that get, we get our fingers pointed at. We're kind of the Jews of Germany in the 1930s. We're kind of responsible for all things that have gone bad. And our industry is no less important than anybody else's industry here. It's been very inconvenient, for lack of a better term. It's cost me and everybody else in my industry a lot of money. So my concern is that next summer, whenever the hotels and the restaurants and the direct tourist trades are now past inconvenient or having to shut down, that it'll be too late by then. So the local guys, the Edison guys out there, I doubt, I think they're trying to do what they can do. I doubt they're getting any attention from the mothership whatsoever. That could be on fire and probably wouldn't get any attention. I think it's up to you guys. You're the leaders of the community. You're the people that went through the weirdest election we've had in the history of this town, at least since I've been here, and there you are. It's up to you. You're the leaders. You're going to have to go do something. And I'm not talking about paper plates or a drum circle or some kind of candle lighting vigil. You're going to have to do something. You're going to have to, I think, go up the ladder. It's up to you. You need to be past polite. I think if the Edison Company was going to do something, if they felt sorry for us and wanted to do something, they would have done it a long time ago. They're not. They're just not gonna. It doesn't make any fiscal sense for them. They're not going to do it. So somebody further up the ladder is going to have to come down and say, here's what you're going to have to do. And that's involving you folks or some hired asshole to go shake up some people up the ladder. So that starts with you guys. So it's not hard and it's not easy. You're going to have to make some water. And that's the only solution, relying on hope. But it's been relying on hope for the 31 years that I've been here, and it really doesn't work well. So I'm requesting, get busy, shake somebody up.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you very much.
Can I comment?
Yes.
Okay. The strength of the direction that I gave you guys when you went into this Edison meeting, it's pretty strong, right? Okay, but you have to be gentlemen about what you do. Okay. We're pushing real hard. We're going up the ladder. We're climbing way up the ladder, and we'll climb farther, and we'll push harder. I've been criticized for how strongly that I vocalize the way I feel, but that's why I was elected, because I'm very passionate and I'm very strong, and I'm going to continue to do that in every way, shape, or form, especially about water. So I encourage you, after the comments that I've received outside of this meeting from all the other public people that I represent, that you go to bat in a very strong way. And I would ask the council if you would actually acknowledge what I'm saying and back me on this, because I'm tired of this too. I'm tired of it. It started like 5-6 years ago. We had it on our plate 2 years ago, and that was at the top of just about all of our priority lists. It still is. And we got our desalination unit. It's not enough. Now we've got a lot of questions that are unanswered from Edison officials. You guys are going to bat, and the strength of your vocalization on how you get things done is going to be the difference between the outcome that's favorable for the community in the near future, and I'm talking within the next month. So the next meeting, we're going to come back. We're going to see exactly where our city manager and our city attorney have gone with the strength of the meeting today. And I'm sure that we will press as hard as we possibly can without... even if somebody we have to ask for somebody's job, we'll do that. If we have to go to Sacramento, we'll do that. If we have to go to Washington, D.C., we'll do that. But we need to get more water in this community. The community is going into possible health problems. We definitely have financial deficit because of it. Hotels, half of hotels, their rooms, their laundry rooms, they're being shut down. People are concerned that there's going to be disease now. Not from the deer, but from us, human beings, not being healthy enough because the water, there's not enough of it. It's getting ridiculous.
Mayor, may I just say that, first of all, I've understood since the day I've been here on the 15th that for us, with regard to water supply, failure is not an option. And what I understand your goal to be is cooperatively, collaboratively, to get the job done. But one way or another, we're going to get the job done, and it's going to be done with your support in the near term, not in the far distant future, because it has been too long that the island has been under this scourge of drought, and we're very receptive to what we know that you believe and that we hear from the community. And on the 20th, the city attorney will be reporting on what we believe and we know is the full. That doesn't apply.
That's it.
No, that what we think is a near-term solution. We want the cooperation of Edison. We hope that we're moving in that direction. But in the end, failure that we bring to you is not an option.
I will just say that we understand your sentiment, and we went to the meeting today firm, and it's like this is what we believe, and the reason we had this meeting is because Edison is the water purveyor. And in order to get some of the funding that is required for this, we need their support, because when you go to Sacramento and get funds, we need to have it. And they refused to have a meeting with us until today. So we finally had the meeting. It was a productive meeting. There's some more things we have to circle back to make certain vis-a-vis property and feasibility, and then we're going to come forward in the 2 weeks from now.
There's some very disturbing things that Edison has done and said, and they've refused to answer a lot of the questions. I was at the meeting, the water meeting. People were asking questions that weren't being answered, and there were pretty simple questions. And we all received a letter from Pam Albers, but what we do, it needs to be a multi-directional assault on what the problem is to fix it. We do need dredging. We do need the pipeline to Hamilton Cove. We do need another saltwater intake so we can produce. Like Pete said, actually, we're producing enough electricity. We should be able to produce enough water. We have the units out there. We need storage tanks. I mean, all these things need to be done. We need to push hard on all those levels. I mean, $8 million, they keep throwing $8 million at us to dredge. And I just think that's the biggest bunch of baloney. I haven't seen anything that documents that. The vineyards out there, they're nice and green. They don't have any shortage of water out there, okay? Where's that water? Do they really get enough water from their wells in Cottonwood to irrigate the vineyards? There's no sign of agriculture on our 2030 vision plan, okay? It says there is no agriculture on Catalina Island. There's a flaw in that, okay? We need to revise that. So, with everything that's been said to me and everything that we've talked about tonight, you guys need to really get aggressive on this, okay? And climb up the ladder, and let's get somebody fired if we need to. If that's what's going to bring in a solution to this, then let's do that. I mean, but what we need to do is find somebody that works for Edison that's actually going to do the job for us, and let's go ahead and do it, okay? Because everything's on the table. Everything's right in front of us. We know what we have to do. We know what we need. The community's just reached out to us. We have financial problems right now. Because I don't know if you guys know it, but some of the hotels have to close their rooms down, half their rooms down because of this. People are really concerned about it. I know a lot of old people that aren't showering because they're afraid. They're afraid to shower. This whole thing's really pissing me off. And you know what? I'm going to tell you guys, everything takes 2 weeks. So when we get up here, it's going to be another 2 weeks before we get some results. But in the meantime, in the interim, we got these guys going out and they're doing work, and they got their staff doing it for us. And I just, if you didn't get this emotional and this pressing with us, we wouldn't be able to do it to our staff and let them know that this is the way we feel about things. So. I'm telling you.
Okay.
You're not just one guy.
No. I think one thing that everybody really concerned about is the time frame. We need a time frame and put a stop to it. Okay, you haven't met our obligations yet, or your obligations. Put a time frame on. We're not getting anywhere with them. Then we go to the next level to get something done. I think that's the main thing. We, like Joe says, we keep 2 weeks. They don't meet with us. They don't do this. Hey, let's put them on a time frame.
We will structure at your next meeting. There'll be a report by the city attorney. There will also be a structure that I hope that we don't need to take, but there is other steps that can be taken. We are optimistic. We want to be positive that we're going to come with a near-term solution. We need SCE's cooperation. We want it, but in the end, we're not going to fail. With your help and your support, we will not fail, and it's going to be in the near term, not another 34 years like when the first desal plant was put in to today. So that's our promise to you as our bosses. It's a promise to the community that and with your support, I believe that we're going to achieve what you've expressed.
Yeah, hold them to the highest level of scrutiny and criticism, because they said that they were going to have a meeting with the Island Company before they had a meeting with us. That's what I call a special interest there, okay? So either there's a special deal going on there, I don't know what it is, okay? But until we scrutinize them about that, then they said, oh, okay, we'll have a meeting with you guys too. That's wrong. That's wrong.
I am imagining that many of us on the council are hearing from duplicate people as well, but hearing and having people watch the meetings, hearing we're having a meeting with Edison, or we're talking, or we have a possible solution, is very hard to go back into the community with. The community wants specifics. What is this solution we're going after? Does the council back this solution? Where are we in the process, or where is Edison in the process of several different projects that they're going after? You know, it seems like all of this is being done between the city manager, city attorney, Edison, but it's not being communicated to the rest of the citizens, which makes it very hard. It doesn't allow us to go out to our community and have conversations and say, this is what we're working on, this is what we're proposing. And it doesn't help the community stand behind us in what we're here to do.
Let me just say that I think that we've made very clear, at least I have, where I think the solution is. And although it's not on your agenda, let me just say that Edison needs to support the city in its application for funds for desalination wells and for a storage facility that will adequately handle water within the city limits. That is our first, as a staff, your staff, that's our first priority. To take care of the people here first, that's our priority. We understand that to be yours, you'll verify whatever we bring. Subsequently is that we want to discuss, and we believe that you'll be supportive once our needs are met. That other solutions for other parts of the island would be on the table. I've communicated these things in various forms, but not as specifically until we had the product of this meeting, and the city attorney and I I've been asked to hold off till the 20th because it'll give time for what we hope to be our partners, SCE, to come back and say that they're with us. They're either with us or they're not. We need to know one way or the other, so we know what the next steps are to recommend to you. And believe me, I know there are steps that can be taken and should be taken if we don't, but I'm optimistic that we will get cooperation. So I just want to reaffirm what I know, your sense of urgency, the communities, that's where we are.
And again, it's our sense of urgency. I asked for this meeting 2 months ago, and I can't make Edison come to it. We finally withheld the money. We forced them to come to the meeting. They had 8 people there, they're very high up. And again, we conveyed to them the urgency of this, the fact that we need specific solutions. We've got some solutions. The money is out there, which we will detail. That's not city money, so that we can have other people pay for this. But we have to if we're going to get that money, it has to be Edison and the city. That's the only way we get the money from the third party.
So we have till the 20th. We have till the 20th to figure out whether or not they're on board with us, correct?
Yeah, and if not, then we're going to say what our proposal is or our recommendation is, and then we go forward on our own, or there's some sticks that we can
Well, of course we
use.
have to. Of course we're going to have to do something. We're going to have to get a water truck. We're going to have to put it down on Front Street.
There are other options. There are other options that are available to you, which we hope that we will come in together with this solution, with a solution to you and the community. And I'm optimistic, but I'm not a fool, and you're not either, and the people aren't. And so let's just say we're optimistic, and on the 20th, it'll be more than just platitudes. It'll be talking about real things that they need to do and we need to do to be supportive of water for our community first and foremost, us. And then we'll work with any other parties, I believe, based on what I understand you'd be, to collaboratively. But we got to take care of this issue where 1 million people come in, where we have hundreds of businesses here, where we have people employed. We have to take care of us first. And that's where we're coming from. I hope I didn't overstep, but that's just.
Great.
We also need to know where Edison is in its project timeline
Yes,
with
sir.
things like Hamilton and, you know, what is the plan? What is their plan? Because we are going to be in phase 4 by September of next year, which will be that it will implode our community. And I don't know if Edison is paying attention to this. They get to go out and apply for whatever shortage of water. They get to go to the PUC and apply for that money to make themselves whole. In the meantime, our economy will implode if we go to phase 4. So we need to know, what is their plan? Are they going to truck in water? Are they going to barge in water? What are they going to do in the next 12 months to keep us from imploding while they're working on seawells, while we're working on storage?
That's a good point. And by the way, more than one party can go to the Public Utilities Commission, that cities throughout the state. So I only say that not as just as a commentary. PUC's historically very receptive to local government and the needs of elected leaders, people who are elected by the people, not necessarily other parties, but they're very sensitive to that, and I think they're very receptive to reasonable persuasions that may or may not be needed. Hopefully, they won't be needed. But
Probably not supposed to come back, but there is already desal units in place. There's already a storage facility of the reservoir. There's already a pipeline that runs from the reservoir down. One solution that's come up is simply run the desal units and pump the water back up the very same pipeline into the reservoir. Pretty simple. Have a storage facility that has enough water in it for the evening. All night long, you make water and you dump it back into the storage facility you already got through the pipeline you already own. A little bit of plumbing and some backflow, a few pumps. Be the quickest, cheapest solution to at least put some more water back in the reservoir. And it can be as simple or as complicated as all the rules and regulations want it to be. But it's, at the end of the day, it's a little bit of plumbing and a little bit of ingenuity. So I would start with that.
We'd like our options to explain to define the next meeting. Like he said, if that's something that can be done, we want to know how logistically it could be done and what the expense would be, and with all the other plans as well. The pipes to Hamilton Beach Cove. We want to know if the wells are connected. We still don't know if the well in Cottonwood Canyon is connected to the well in Middle Ranch Canyon. We don't have anything. They say it's not. But we don't know it. And that water's being used to water grapes. Okay? So, and those grape vineyards are nice and green, and I'm sure they're producing some really nice grapes. So, point is, we've got multifaceted areas that we need to explore, and we need to explain to the people what the options are, how we do it, logistically, if it's feasible, and if it's not. And somebody needs to get up here and explain it to us. If not, someone from Edison, then someone that we hire, a consultant that comes in, an expert that tells us all about what our water is here, what our problems are, how we can fix them. But it can't wait. We got to push this through in the next 2 weeks. We got to let them know that we want answers and we want them now. And if not, maybe we do need to hire somebody that has a barge full of water, bring it over every day, and do this ourselves.
Yeah, I think your point about, and Miss Cassidy, Councilmember Cassidy's point about there's the short term, the near term. Well, even with the best of plans today, it's going to take time to put into place. So the short term, okay, what do you do in the short term to remediate, to handle the issue? And then what is the little longer term solution? And that's essentially what we've been working on. But the questions are excellent, and that's what we want to get back to you with that information. As the gentleman and others have talked about, is it possible to pump back up? And is that a short term solution? Are there barges? I've heard people at meetings that the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem talked about that you could barge water in bladders. In bladders, yeah, to bring over. Those are excellent questions that we'll follow up on.
Is this on water too as well?
Yes, it's on water. Thanks. I think it's time that the city council goes to the PUC. I have been at almost every meeting listening to their presentations, and not once have I heard a solution. I've heard cut rates, fines, and so on. I have not heard a solution. I was at a board meeting last month at the chamber, and Jeff did another one of his presentations, and of course I brought up coin wash, and he said that storage isn't a priority. I heard that with my own ears. He also indicated that I can reach out to him anytime and contact him, and he would be willing to sit down and we can talk about coin wash. Well, I made a phone call the day after the meeting. I have yet heard back from him, which I'm not surprised he's not even contacting city officials when you guys reach out to him. So this is very concerning. I honestly think the Edison company thinks it's going to rain. I mean, what else could they be in their minds when they're not setting up storage and future stage 4? There has been no solution, no anything to try and help us. It's all, I think, there's no money to be made in tons of water, period. End of story, as far as I'm concerned. So they're not losing out when we don't have water. Only the residents and the visitors are losing out. And I had maintenance come over and maintain and do a bunch of service on my washing machines and laundromat, and I posted that it was going to be closed down, and people were pounding down my doors because it was their only day off and they lived in the harbor and so forth. I opened the coin wash because they needed a place to launder their clothes. Well, we had workers in there working. I mean, what are you going to do if I have to close down? I mean, this is a serious business here. And I asked him, a laundromat this size with this many machines, how much do you think your utility is? And he's been in business for 25 years, and he runs a bunch of laundromats all the way from West LA down to Orange County. And he said about $1,200. My bill last month was over $6,000. And it's going to come to a point where I'm not going to pay people to do their laundry. I mean, this is insanity. I mean, it's time to go to the PUC if they're not willing to come up with solutions. I mean, we're all going to be in dire straits. Thank you.
Thank you. We know and hear everybody's frustration every day in every way. And now we're going to hear from Mark Tasca. I'm assuming this is on water as well.
Oh, yes. Mark Tasca, 330 Clarissa. I believe back in the quote-unquote contract that Edison has, they're supposed to supply water at their cost. Why are we giving money to Edison to do their job? It's number one. Two things you have to remember. They've abrogated their responsibility, and they don't care about us. I recommend that we go with what the gentlemen say and also hit social media. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I do know that Edison is probably out there listening, and hope you're enjoying yourself. There is supposed to be a public water meeting in the next couple of weeks, and I know, we would all like civility at something like this. However, I think you can hear out there in television land that we are done. We are tired. And so unless, and I know, you are a private business, but because you are a public utility, we feel we have the right to know. We need to know the answers. We may not even like the answers, and then we do what we do with the information we get. But the answers need, they talked about evaporation. They can't they can't figure out what the evaporation is. I went online yesterday and said, well, give me the formula for evaluation in a lake. It's called the Penman formula. Well, if somebody's a scientist, it ain't me. It's T minus, it's this big, long formula, but it's based on latitude and weather and dew points. You can figure out the evaporation rates. And then when you figure out what the evaporation rates are, you can decide if you need to tarp it. If it's, so if me can find this out, I know they have scientists there, mathematicians, whatever does that. So, we ask a lot of questions. We ask about water restrictors. Why can't we have them on all the time? And if so, can they tell us what So we're giving you heads up for your meeting, you know. If we put on restrictors, okay, what has been the impact of having restrictors on? For all of those that have put them on, how's it, you know, or for those of you who have restrictors, is your water bill down? How much less have you used? I mean, those things should be out there. That kind of, and the simple question that I've been asking about the vacation rentals for, you know, being in the residential pool, pull those out. And there was a letter written to try to, if we needed to help to get that information so they could see, so as we plan ahead, because it's not going to get worse before it gets better, so that we can figure out where the tweaking needs to be done. Because yes, some may say it's vacation rentals, but do we really know? And how are they going to plan ahead as a Chamber of Commerce with their things if they don't know where, I don't want to call it where the bad things are happening, it's just where the realities are. So there's a lot of homework to be done, I think, on the part of Edison, and I know they're hearing loud and clear where we are all coming from and what we're all plagued with every day, and it's not pleasant.
We're working toward yes. Yes is the answer, and that's our hope, expectation, that yes will be the answer. Yes, they will cooperate. Yes, they will work with us jointly, and that's. But one way or another, we have to do what you or be asked to do what we have to do to address the issues that you've raised and the community has raised.
Right. Thank you. Any other comments on water? Okay. Any other oral communication? Okay, hearing none, we will continue with the consent calendar.
Thank you,
You're
Madam
welcome.
Mayor. Consent calendar. Yes, we have on item 1 actions. As you know, actions of the City Council are recorded, public meetings. However, their minutes are the approved form for the regular record of the council. So approve the minutes for August 2nd and August 16th. Item number 2 is a resolution approving the application for the annual allocation for transit funds under Article 8 of the Transit Development Act, otherwise known as TDA. This is so we can claim monies that are available to us. There's the item number 3 is the waterside permit application, temporary underwater sculptures installed in Casino Park Drive. The recommended action is that the council issue a waterside permit to the Parlay Foundation for the placement of 3 temporary underwater structures in the city's jurisdictional waters in the Casino Dive Park. 2, approve an agreement with the Parlay Foundation for the terms and conditions of the installation of the underwater sculptures and authorize city manager to execute the agreement. And 3, to approve the design of installation of underwater sculptures and authorize the city manager to his designee to approve any future revisions. This is an exciting art. I know that the council has been favorable and has acted on previously. 4 is lease purchase agreement for the Joe Machado Field artificial turf project. The council, on its meeting of the 28th, approved the contract to design and construct an artificial turf surface at Joe Machado Field. The total cost is $1,275,000 plus a 15% contingency. Anheuser-Busch donated $500,000 to be applied toward the project, and council appropriated funds from the general fund to be utilized for the remaining cost. The recommended action is authorize the city manager to execute the lease purchase agreement subject to review and approval by city's legal counsel. And I want to compliment Robert Mesher, our finance director, for working on that agreement and getting its terms into reasonable. Item number 5 is extend agreement with RSG for fiscal year 16-17 for the successor agency and Housing Authority Consulting Services. Of course, successor agency is the successor to redevelopment. And the city does have a housing authority. The recommended action is to authorize the city manager to extend the professional service agreement with RSG to 1, provide redevelopment dissolution services, and 2, provide housing authority annual reporting and strategic planning not to exceed $37,500. Thank you, Mayor.
Right. Council, what's your pleasure?
I have a question for Scott on item number 5.
Yes.
Is this something we could do in-house, or is it something that we're required by the state to consult out?
You're not required by the state to consult out. You could do it in-house, but it's been our practice because it involves a lot of complex accounting and special knowledge of redevelopment rules, as well as preparing the ROPS, and then appearing before the Department of Finance when there's a consideration of approval of the ROPS, that we have RSG to do this. There's one more year left in redevelopment when you have to have these ROPS done, so this would be the last contract.
Because we only do the ROPS once a year now, right, Denise?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And just a question on number 4, because I didn't read the whole contract. I apologize. For the lease for Joe Machado. If we hit the lotto, there's no penalty for early payoff?
Robert?
Playing the lotto?
I'm going to with my city fund. I mean, my silly salary.
They do charge a 2% charge for early prepayment.
Okay. That standard kind of, okay.
Yeah, they incur a lot of administrative costs putting the lease together, and they want to make sure that they're reimbursed for that.
Okay. All right.
2% of the balance, right? 2% of the balance, the outstanding balance at that time? Or 2%? 2% of the balance, the outstanding balance, or 2%?
Correct. Yes, 2% of the outstanding principal.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Council?
I make a recommendation. We go ahead and items 1 through 5.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Comments? Call for the vote.
Approve. All ayes.
Item number 6.
Mayor and Council, you received today, I guess, a communication from Randy Barb, who is the chairman of the Yacht Club, and he has some comments that he made in regard to the proposed agreement. You had previously instructed the interim city manager to propose terms for a lease extension to the Catalina Island Yacht Club. The current lease on the subject property ends in 2020. Under the City Council's offer at that time, you proposed a new lease extension to 2023 and a 10-year option. The interim city manager did exactly what you instructed and communicated that information to the Yacht Club. On the 30th, Chairman Barb wrote to Mayor Marshall proposing, in addition to the 3-year and 10-year, an additional 10-year. What I read today appears to be a request actually to have 2 more 10-year options, and that would be, so instead of a new lease extension 2023, a 10-year option, and they want 3 10-year options. They explain the reasons for that request based upon their community support and because of their what they've invested in the Yacht Club itself. But you can decide if you wish to honor their request, or you can decide to direct us to have the agreement prepared as you originally proposed. And that's the issue before you.
Do we have a copy of the lease agreement?
I know we've received them before.
We got it in closed session, but we weren't allowed to take it and absorb it. Is that something we can have a copy of?
The lease agreement is a public document. That is, the existing agreement is a public document, so it could certainly be made available to you, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I've seen the lease agreement. I think we had copies of them. You don't, yeah.
Do you want that right now? Well, part of, it really just depends. A question that came to me today was, and I wanted a clarification, as part of the lease agreement, in lieu of paying rent to the city, the yacht club has been requested to do the donations to the public in lieu of rent. So I wanted to clarify if that was in fact in the lease, if that was part of it. That the donations to the public aren't above and beyond a rent that they pay to the city, that they are in lieu of rental payments to the city. So they're actually paying a less amount of rent directly to the city of Avalon, but it goes to community organizations.
I remember something like that.
I'm uncertain, Cindy, because we executed that lease, I don't know how many years ago. So, because as you know, it hasn't expired. I could certainly go get it and right now.
And I think another
Wanna put it on
question
hold.
was and you know, I'm a little uncomfortable because we've been having conversations in closed session, and now all of a sudden, I mean, what's the law here, Scott? Can we talk about what we've talked about in closed session? Because I'm going to bring up a whole bunch of questions we've already talked about.
Council would have to authorize the disclosure of previous discussions in closed session. So you would have to vote 3-0 to allow discussion of the things we talked about in closed session. Barring that, then it's just a matter of what's before you, which is the 10-year versus the 3 additional 10-year terms.
What's your pleasure?
I mean,
I'm willing to
I would
discuss-
rather just keep going with the conversation, and so I would make a motion to allow for the council to discuss what we've discussed previously in closed session.
I'll second it. Further comment? Call for the vote.
All ayes.
Okay, so then what I don't remember in the conversations prior is we had gone back to the yacht club with the new lease extension and a 10-year option extending it to 2033. What was our conversation about only doing 10-year extension? Does anybody remember?
Well, I think part of that was, the first thing was trying to get it on the Tuna Club, on schedule with Tuna Club. We just thought that was kind of a simpler thing. Let's keep them consistent. I think that was the one. And then I think, okay, but talk to me, because on all of our other city leases, it's what? On all the, like in the...
They're 5-year extensions.
5 and 5?
No, I think actually you gave a 10 and 5.
10 and 5. 10 and 5. Okay.
On the standard leases, but this
Okay.
these two leases have been treated differently from
Right.
other leases. I do
Okay.
recall that part of the discussion on it was to kind of marry the terms together in terms of so that both the Yacht Club and Tuna Club lease would be expiring at the same time.
Mhm. And then, Cindy, at the back of this one page on Exhibit C for the request, and that was, I don't know if that's this request or as it says, annual base rent of $27,500, charitable contributions of $26,000, and they're not asking to eliminate the maintenance, I don't believe, because they end up doing $30,000 plus a year.
They have done an enormous amount of maintenance on the facility in contrast to maybe other lessees. I think they've contributed a lot, not only to the maintenance of the facility itself, the underpilings and so on, but also in their community support.
So that's why the contracts are
Right.
rather exclusive. I mean, because
Right.
they do all that maintenance, and and one of them is a national. It's a landmark, isn't it?
No, they're not.
They're
No,
not?
the Tuna Club is.
Tuna Club's
yeah.
not?
I
Tuna Club is.
vaguely remember that
Tuna Club
number
is.
being $1.3 million that they've put into that facility
Yes,
over
yes, ma'am.
like a short period of time.
Yes.
10 years or so. So, I mean, one of the concerns that was raised to me, which isn't my own, it's just one that I want to answer to, and that is, a 30-year extension, a 30-year lease is a long period of time, but yet the organization has put in 1.3, if that's the right number.
1.878.
1.878 in
Since
repairs to the building. So, I mean, that's a significant.
That's in 9 years.
That's
It's over 9 years.
Yeah, significant contribution to that building. And then, who actually owns that building is another question. Does the city own that building?
That's what the lease says.
Tuna Club has the same comment.
I mean, these are comments and they're being asked, and I just want to, we're making it public.
The city owns the building. It is over the tidelands,
Yes.
and so I think we have a grant from the state for that as well as, and then any entitlements are governed by Coastal Commission because it's over the water.
Okay, so that answers another question, which is, which we've heard from some community in the past is, both with the yacht club and with the tuna club, take those buildings and do something else with them. And that doesn't seem favorable considering, who owns the building and what they have put into the building over the last 9 years. So, like I said, we just need to make it all public.
No, I agree. And the contributions were in over the $315,000. That's about $50,000 a year in donations to all from their foundation, from the Billfish tournament, from their auxiliary, and the mooring owners, and the other. And I guess they are really active in this community. I mean, as the letter says, they eat in our restaurants. They have the food catered, right? Things we get. They have a number of mooring owners. What was the number that they just sold in moorings? $4 million or $6 million this year. We get 5% of that. That's another $300,000 to the city coffers. So they're very actively involved in our community, and so I mean,
That's a long lease.
What's that?
That's a long lease. So they're committed. Get committed to that small value for that property. I would just like to get some information on some of the other yacht clubs and see what rent they pay over town, and some information on some of the other places over town, just to find out. I don't know. I mean, to me, this seems awfully low rent. I mean, you're right. They do a lot of stuff for the community, but there's a lot of questions I'd like to ask. I mean, just to see if we get what the difference is between yacht clubs over town and what they pay. How much do their members pay to get it? How much do they pay? $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a person to be a member of that club, and the annual fees. What are they? I mean, it's just. Those are some of the questions I'd like to have answered.
I'm not so concerned about what people pay for their memberships because.
Well, it might have a bearing on how much.
Well, if they have 200 and some members and it's $20,000 or $30,000, okay, that's $1 million. But so what, I guess? Then you know that it's a healthy organization that when something goes awry, they're going to be able to afford to get it fixed. I mean, it couldn't be the Annie Yacht Club and, a storm comes in and the thing would have to be destroyed. So I give credit to the fact that they are a pretty well-endowed yacht club, I'd like to say. And and if we're going to compare, we've got to compare apples with apples. So something where the city owns the building, the city had the tidelands, whatever. If we're comparing apples, I think that's fine.
That's what I'd like to see.
But I don't know what the rest. I mean, I could make a decision today, but I don't know what the rest of you all want to do.
Mayor, may I just offer this, just as a reminder that what you previously had proposed to the yacht club is a new lease extension to 2023. That's the first component. The second was a 10-year option on that. That was what you originally directed the interim city manager to propose, and she did so. They have now proposed 2 additional 10-year leases, 10-year extensions, excuse me. And so whatever your choice is, if you want us to go back and examine, we will. So it's 2023, 10-year, which is what your previous direction. They want a 10 and add on a 10 and a 10, and I think you have the choice of whatever you choose to do in that regard.
That's 2053.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Our great-grandchildren would have to redo these leases at that rate.
We'll be there.
We'll be long. I don't know. Mayor Pro Tem Olson, you must have a comment.
My only concern with a really long-term lease would be we need to have a rent inflator in there. Because otherwise it just stays the same, and that's one of the scary things about a long-term lease. On the flip side, I don't expect that we're going to have a tenant leave us. Right. I expect it's going to be yacht club for the next 50 or 60 or 70 years. I mean, it's been that way for the last 80 years. So it's the term doesn't scare me just as long as there's an inflator in there.
Isn't there there is a CPI in there? There was a CPI.
Yeah. As long as we can just follow the inflator.
Denise, do you recall on the original if there's a CPI inflator?
I'm assuming yes, just like the other leases, but I can't. As
Yeah,
I said,
I
it's
know
been
you
a
have a
while.
lot of them.
No, we definitely discussed that in closed session. There was a
Yeah,
there
well,
was a CPI.
if there's not in the prior leases, there will be in any extension granted.
We never executed the one from the closed session of last time because there was still some.
Right. Yeah, but it was mentioned as needing to be.
So the council could, if that were your thought, if you could determine, or you could tonight or other time, what was a reasonable inflator, and propose then back a term to the yacht club based on what you think are reasonable terms, or you could ask us to go back as one of the councilmen and look comparatively. It's really your choice of how you want to handle it. It seems to me, just this editorial comment, is that they have been very responsible tenants. They've been very community-minded. They are different, let's just say, and they're unique, maybe. They are unique in things that they do, but it's certainly you're the policy body.
Will we have to match other lease options because we're doing this?
I'm not editorialize a little bit on this.
Mm-hmm.
I think you look at each case on its own merit, and you look at you reward success, not mediocrity. And not that we have any mediocre leases, but you reward people who have contributed the most, just as you reward children or others as they do well. And so I don't think I think you have to look at each case and make a decision based on what they've done in the past and what you see them or they commit to do in the future. That's just my opinion.
I can act tonight or I can act in 2 weeks.
Is it reasonable? It's a 30-year extension is what they're asking for, right?
27, yeah.
Yeah, 27 years. So wait a minute. No, I thought it was 1 10-year plus another 2 years, and then we got seven left?
From now to 23 is the 7, and then 2 10-year extensions, right? Only?
No, 3 10-year extensions.
No, they want 3 10 years.
Yeah. What we already agreed to was a lease extension to 2023 and a 10-year option.
Yes.
Which extends to 2033. Right. That was our comfort level the last closed session when we looked at all of this exact information. And extending it beyond that was not what we wanted to do at the time. So that's why I'm asking what's changed in the interim. Is there another $1.8 million or $2.8 million in the next 30 some years that they need to do?
Yep, wooden piles. Don't we also have a request from the Tuna Club to have an increase in their lease?
I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen that, but there may be one.
I think there's one floating.
Okay.
So for the interest of continuity, if we do this one now, and then when we get the request from the Tuna Club, we can consider both of those at the same time.
Well, that's why I asked my question.
If the goal is to get them concurrent.
You certainly could. There is time on the current lease before it expires, so you certainly could do that. And in fairness, I think you might want to look at what each party has done and what they've contributed and make your judgments based on what you think is best in the public interest based on that.
Yeah, I don't want to sit here and compare the two today or anything because we don't have information. But so you can go ahead, Rich.
It's just not a pushing issue right now, right? I mean, they're good for a little more time, right? Why do we have to push everything now? Is it a must-do right now? Or?
Well, it's not. It's just that they've asked consistently. Okay. So, and I think we're being responsive consistently in looking at it, and and we've looked at other people's leases when we were negotiating and said, okay, let's look at this. So I think this negotiation is fine.
I'm going to be honest and say I don't have a clear understanding what all of the negatives would be in extending the lease. And I would like to know, I definitely want to hear from the public on this one, but I would like to know more about the pros and the cons. A 37-year lease is far greater than a 17-year lease that we were going to give before. And I'm wanting to do the very best by a wonderful tenant, but I don't feel good about making a decision for 37 years tonight. I do not feel like I have enough information. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't in 2 weeks, but tonight I don't feel like I have enough information.
I'd like to also know more pros and cons about actually what the results from this decision would be tonight. So yeah, I've got more questions because it's very unclear as to how this might benefit or be a deficit to us into the future, having this lease out this long, and also what their the responsibilities would be towards the building that far out, and would that come back to us as well?
And then and then who do we tax with creating the pros and cons? Who's capable of doing that?
I think we could collaborate in staff and do it. I think there's some obvious pros, there's some obvious cons. And then it depends on what type of terms you have and what the other party is committed to do, what they guarantee they'll do, or they're in breach. So I mean, I think we can put something together based on the pros and cons. We'll talk to our city attorney, but I think we can put pros and cons on the length.
Okay, and read over the last lease.
And if we don't actually own the building and it's based on the Tidelands lease and all that, not saying we should, but would that be an option to sell that and let them just handle everything themselves? Or what is the impact that would be to us if they were to buy whatever the part of the property is? I mean, is that, several $1 million we can put into a project for the city now? I'm just trying to figure out what all. And then as far as the, since we're gathering information and we are obviously making this very public, I would like to know, and I do know and can say 45 minutes worth of wonderful and amazing things the Yacht Club does, and I fully support the Yacht Club, and they're great stewards of this community for sure. But I would really like to get more information on exactly what the capital improvements were and the financials around what they have done. And I don't know if the city already has that information that we could just pull out. But just the graph is not, I mean, I just like a little bit more specifics.
Absolutely.
While we're at it, we might as well if it is city property, maybe do a state of affairs check of the property, evaluate it, see what it does look like. I mean, I'm sure their standards might even be higher than our standards, and they might have more knowledge of how they want their building, the state of affairs of the building to be. So I think we should know what we have there as well.
Council member, you're asking about really a value. I think both of you are saying, what is the valuation? Is there some estimate of valuation of the property? Is that in part?
Yeah, well, especially
that's what she's saying, but not him.
Yeah, I think she was saying what's it worth if we were to sell it. If we wanted to, if we could hypothetically sell it.
If that's even a possibility.
And then Councilmember Sampson was, are they keeping it in good condition? Yeah. Are they being good? They are taking care of our property. Are they doing a good job of it?
Maybe
that's one thing you want to consider.
It's really easy to videotape things. I know it's hard. You can't do that. It's hard to do that in a tuna club. They don't like you filming anything in there. That's just a policy they have. But I think it's in the best interest of the city to know exactly what we have there. If it's going to fall down in a couple of years, or in 20 years, or if it's in really good shape. I mean, if we're negotiating for the people of Avalon, I think that's what we need to know.
And I don't know if Dennis could speak to that, but I know Pastor Lopez was in the building often because they had to redo their sewer, and then there was a problem. They redid it again, and so everything's good. But yes, I don't know if it's something that just like a Dennis J.H. looks at and says, or somebody else. Maybe just the dentist taking a peek at it one day. Okay, so it looks like we're holding it over.
Holding
The
over.
direction is, okay, you got the
Thank you.
direction. Okay, item number 7. Vacation rentals and transfers.
Oops, where's item number 7?
Oh, wait, can we, Jenny, before you go, can we hear from the public on that?
Oh, did you want to make a comment about the yacht club?
Just recently, you raised the mooring rates, I believe, and
Yeah.
is the rate of the CPI and the yacht club commensurate to, individual moorings? Does anybody know that?
No.
I don't understand the question.
It's not tied to it. No, it's not. It's separate.
Yeah, I would imagine. But I'm just, the anecdotal feeling I have is that this is probably one of the most valuable pieces of real estate in the Southland, and to rent it for $850 a month is like unbelievable. And then to say, okay, well, we have $27,000 in donations that are well marketed. I mean, they march it all over the cover of the Islander, and they're big checks and all of that. But these are like $2,000 to a club, this club. And then when you look at what the Lions Club does, it's just not even, it's far superior. So what these guys can probably afford, I don't think they're being charged, is my just guess on the issue. And that I think it would be a really great income for the city if the rent went up a little bit and did not extend for 30 years. So that's all I was going to...
Thank you for your comments. Yes. He says, I want to rent the yacht club.
Hey there. Thomas Salinas from CIVR and CIRE. I really appreciate that this is a discussion item on the agenda today, mostly because of my history of working with at least 6 different cities in Southern California on vacation rental ordinances and tourism and how they impact.
That's the next item.
What's that?
Next item.
That's the next item. Nope, we're
Sorry.
taking comments
We
on.
went backwards because we had
Sorry.
some public comment.
Sounded good, though.
But we appreciate your enthusiasm. Okay.
We did. But Janny had raised her hand early on wanting to make a comment on the yacht club lease. Sorry, so I wanted to give her a chance.
Okay. Item number 7. Vacation rentals and transfers.
If I may, I'll do an
please.
overview on this. The recommended action is to review and discuss whether the City of Avalon should place a cap on the number of vacation rentals and whether transfer of vacation rental rights should occur with sale of the property to the new owner. This is a discussion item. Councilmember Cassidy and actually other members also have asked the issue of whether the City Council or should have an open discussion about the wisdom of placing a cap on the number of vacation rentals in town and whether the transfer of vacation rental rights to a new purchaser should be automatic with the sale. The issue arises out of a community concern with the lack of affordable housing and the prospect that with water shortage, building new affordable housing in the near term is not going to occur. And I think it's fair to say that there's no doubt that there is a shortage of affordable housing in Avalon. To the extent that the existing housing supply increases the number of vacation rental units, it is arguable that the action not only takes housing stock off the market for single-family use, but also drives the vacation rental properties already licensed with the city up. So almost all of them are single units. The city generates, I'm told, $1.4 million in transient occupancy tax annually from vacation rental, so it is a revenue source. The city charges an annual $38 business license, and I believe there's approximately 350 vacation rental units that the finance director provided. A moratorium, although remember, this is just discussion, that a moratorium per se that did not change the number of existing units would arguably be revenue neutral. There would not be expected to be a rise in TOT from the source if a moratorium or cap is imposed. Should the City Council direct staff to examine the issue in more detail, a fiscal report would be made. And I think, hopefully, Councilmember Cassidy, that helps frame the issue.
Mm-hmm. There really is two different conversations here, so I want to, for those that are here in the audience and here to speak on this, I would like to just say there are two separate items. One is a discussion about whether or not the conditional use permit should transfer with a sale of property. Does that increase a property value? Does that, is that an issue? What does the council think about it? And then the second one is whether or not we have so many conditional use permits for transient rental housing. Has that impacted our housing stock available for the workers in Avalon and those living in the community? And if so, how do we solve our housing crisis? And really, it's just a conversation. I mean, I'm having conversations with members of the public who are very concerned. I know other members of the council are, and we can't talk to each other one-on-one. So I just wanted to come up here and say, we got a housing crisis, and we're all talking about it, so let's talk about it in an open forum. And
is this affecting our housing crisis is the question we need to ask. And also, 350 units, is that just houses, or is that condominiums, apartments, houses?
That's everything.
Okay.
That's everything, and it only generates $1.4 million a year? I mean, is that accurate?
Those are the vacation rentals that are not hotels.
Okay, that's small, all of them, including condos and apartments, and
that's what they represent.
Okay.
Two points at the beginning. There may be 350. Some of them maybe are only used once or twice a year for like a weekend. So I don't have the specific numbers as to the actual use. We have the numbers of the number permitted, and several years ago we went through a process where we asked people that hadn't used them to drop out. I don't believe we had many people that would do that. Amanda Cook can talk about that. I do want to address the first issue, though, as to whether you can condition it on stopping with the transfer of land. And the California Supreme Court has said no, a CUP runs with the land. So you cannot say if you get a CUP, once you sell it, it goes away. That's just California Supreme Court says no.
So if we don't issue any new CUPs and have transit rental permits, that wouldn't go with the land.
If you don't issue any more
CUPs and we change it to transient rental permits, the process for any new application.
I'm not 100% certain. Well,
yeah, we're not conditional use. It's like a sub-business license.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at that because I'd have to look at that because I don't know if by changing what you call it changes the underlying property.
No, it's not going to change. No, the ones that exist will be there. Going forward, they'll be like grandfather.
Again, state law says that going forward, even if it is a conditional use permit, it has the
we're not
use
changing the CUPs. If you have a CUP today, you've got it forever.
And the answer is I'd have to look at that to see if you call it a permit, if it's a CUP by any other name.
Well, let me just, if I may, mention that in Lake Tahoe, there's probably about 1,500 vacation rentals. And what the council did there more recently is they had as you do, a permitting requirement, but it has to be reviewed and it can be revoked if the conditions are not met, and that they have to go back, I believe, for reuse authorization after a period of time, so that it's not an automatic. So maybe that in the mix that Mayor Pro Tem was talking about, maybe there's something that you would want the city attorney to look at as a.
What's the population in Lake Tahoe?
About 24,000 in the city itself. There's about 1,500 vacation rental units that are registered with the city. So,
the old registered one.
Hi. I want to share just a little bit of history on some of our previous conversations. I think what Oli's referring to is we had conversations in the past, and Scott was part of this as well, where we had discussed changing the code so that transient rentals no longer required a conditional use permit. So we took that out of the mix going forward. Nothing changed on existing. And then we created had discussed creating some type of business license / transient rental permit, just like we have waterside use permits or transportation permits. It became a type of permit that the city would grant. And then we would establish whatever rules and regulations we wanted, whether or not it would transfer. It'd be almost like a type of business. It would just be a broader program around the business license. We also had discussions on what to do with the existing ones. Could we sunset them? We would have to amortize them. We would have to assign a value to the existing one because you can't take them away without letting them realize the value of what they have. I went back through because my CUP file is about this thick. And the last time we looked at and compared how many units we have that have conditional use permits and how many units we have on the books that are legally non-conforming uses, because they've been in existence since prior to us requiring a conditional use permit. So they don't have a CUP, but they are an existing land use as a transient rental. And it's about 50-50 between the ones that have CUPs and the ones that are legally non-conforming uses. So if we wanted to do away with the transferability, we would have to not only deal with the how do you discontinue a legal non-conforming use, but also how to discontinue a conditionally permitted use. It's two types of land uses. So we think it's probably doable, but a little complicated, and it would take some analysis on how to make sure that people have realized the value of their investment.
Yeah, there's a provision inside the code that says if you don't use it for a certain number of years, and I think it's 3 years.
12 months.
12 months, okay. If you don't use it for 12 months, then it ceases to exist, and you can't legally do that.
And we can do that with those legally non-conforming ones as well?
Yes, you have to send out a notice of revocation. There's a procedure.
We have tried to clean up the list over the years because every year when finance gives us a printout of the TOT, there's always a few properties that didn't pay any TOT that year. Right. And we've sent out letters and we've cleaned a few off the list, but every year there's a few that.
So could you send out a letter within the last year to last year and a half? Didn't we direct? No. We directed a letter.
It's probably been 2 years.
Yeah, it was after this council gave a direction, but yes, it was.
And
what happened? How many?
I think we had 3 or 4 that said, we're not going to use it anymore. You can take us off the books. We had a few people say, we want to keep it. Can we come in and pay TOT? It seems like we maybe had 1 go back to the Planning Commission and reanimate it. And then the other issue conversation, I'll just kind of share you the history, and then the other conversations we've had is how do transient rentals affect year-round housing? And one of the things we discussed was we have 2 types of housing in Avalon. We have owner-occupied housing. Well, they're not going to rent it transiently. We have a few people that leave for the summer. And the other one is rental housing, where people own the property as investment property and they rent it year-round. What we found through a lot of conversations, talking to a lot of the owners of the transient business, is that if someone buys a house as their vacation home, they're not going to rent it year-round because they want to come use it. So the fact that it does occupy part of our existing housing stock is an issue because our housing stock's not growing. And I think it's a conversation to have with the chamber and you to decide what percentage of our housing stock do we want to see devoted to vacation rentals so that we can still satisfy our visitor needs. But I think the things that has been hard to define is how much transient rentals may increase the price of property. Does it put such a huge premium on the purchase of real estate that it prices it out of the market for locals to buy? And I think even those discussions have kind of shown that it may broaden the market of people who are capable of buying the property, but it's not going to cut a $650,000 property down to a $275,000 property. It's not going to make that big a difference. So there may be some changes that we could make that would help us expand our housing market, but I'm not sure how you can factor that in. I think if we could accomplish it not going forward with the property, that would be a helpful thing for us, but it would take quite a few steps to change the ones that are currently in existence. And there's a lot of transit rentals out there that the city makes tens of thousands of dollars a TOT off, and there's quite a few that we get $12 a year off of. It's just enough to keep it active. So
one of the things that has concerned me for a while is that the $12 people. And if one of the things was, one of the ways, let's say in the OLI plan with the transient permit, if every year, I don't know, just like your vehicle, if every year they had to come and say, so we have the financial records that says they gave us $12, they gave us $10,000. But if it was almost like if it's what, $2,800 to apply for a CUP?
About 22, I think.
22. Well, every year, if you don't come up, if you haven't given us 2,200, you pay the 2,200 to keep it going.
And we had talked about setting a minimum.
Yeah.
A minimum amount to keep it active, and I think that ran up against what we could do with state law as far as the conditions to maintain the CUP.
Okay, and we can discuss that, but because I guess when we say our vehicle permit is only costs us $20, $30, it's because that's all it takes us to do it? Is that right?
Fees are generally based on the cost to provide the service in general, unless otherwise it becomes a tax. I think that's the...
So if the fee for the CUP was because, unlike a vehicle permit, which you just go and you talk to Dudley, when you do a CUP, you've got a public hearing, you've got to send out notice to everyone in their mother within a certain radius, plus anyone that's requested it, and then there's administrative costs to prepare staff reports to do the planning commission. So it's designed to cover those costs.
There's also costs, there could be costs, there's in Tahoe, where I most recently have been, the cost in providing services to those units. It may be, I'm sure all our visitors are well behaved, but there may be instances when they are not. And
law enforcement.
As that drives up the cost, that's a legitimate charge. You can factor in what that cost is to provide that service.
But because we've kind of just been pussyfooting around this for 2 years, my concern is, because everybody pays their fees starting in January, right? They have to
business license
fees
on an annual.
So I guess I see the urgency in trying to resolve this so that we can put a program in place and not have to wait till 2018 to do something.
Well, I think if you wanted to end the CUP process going forward, that's probably a cleaner change. That's changing the municipal code that says transient rental is no longer a conditionally permitted use in any zone. And then going forward, you would have to have some mechanism on whether or not you wanted to approve them under some other type of permit.
So that would be just as, again, a discussion, and I know we are going to open it up to the public too. I feel bad because you're started and then stopped, but so that would be valuable data. Another conversation that I had with someone was regarding the change just in the last 10 years that I've been here. So we've gone from, I think, 700,000 visitors to 1 million visitors a year that we're now servicing, but our housing units have only increased by, I'm embarrassed to say I don't remember how many Triana. I want to say 18 Triana units and maybe 2 at
Triana.
How many?
26.
26 Triana units and 2, I think, at 2 of the new homes or 3 new homes in Hamilton Cove. So in 10 years, we've only increased our actual housing units by whatever this number is, but our worker force is grown because we're now servicing more visitors a year. So for for me, I'm curious, as you know, we're having these conversations, like what is the statistics of this? What is this data?
And I think one of the issues too that I don't think we've ever gotten our head around really well is how much seasonal housing we need, and you take a certain type of housing to satisfy your seasonal housing requirements, people that are just here for a few months, and then our year-round housing needs, and people that want to live here and raise their families here. And I think that's a study or an analysis that we've not ever clearly been able to define, and that's the seasonal employee housing needs is something that we could get perhaps with the Chamber's assistance and Island Company and the other hospitality employers could tell us, you know, how their employment goes up in the summertime.
I mean, when you have a business renting a hotel for their employees and basically taking those places off the market,
right?
And then again, and money then to the city,
right?
You know, I mean, that's how crazy it is, you know, and
that is, we may have talked to the same person. That was one particular hotelier who has taken 2 or 3 rooms out of service this summer just to house employees.
I think there are multiple hotels that provide employee housing. There's one hotel that's the entire structure, as far as I know, is being leased.
No, the entire beach house,
housing.
Right? The entire beach house is being rented out for employee housing.
So,
that's crazy.
It's something that we just need to decide what the council wants to do. Where do you think it's going to? How will it benefit the community to change the transient program? Perhaps the biggest thing is to say maybe part of the TOT needs to go into a housing fund.
Well, that's interesting. When Mayor Marshall was saying, you know, a minimum fee, and then we moved on, so I'd forgotten that. But the TOT, is there any written in the ordinance or in that? Is there anything written to say that there's a minimum per year? And if not, could that be, because TOT
For the
is a
vacation
tax?
Rentals? I don't believe so.
Wait, explain
they just
that.
Have to.
So if we had a minimum, let's just say we decided a minimum fee per year is $2,250 minimum transient occupancy tax per year. And if you pay more, you pay more. But if you only rent for 2 nights a year or pay your minimum $12 a year, then do we look at increasing that to $2,250 and having that money allocated to a housing fund?
I don't think there's anything in the code. I'm sorry, I think Scott was.
I don't know if you can do that.
There's nothing in the code that you currently have. I'm trying to think. It may be possible because you can always attach conditions upon the granting of a conditional use permit to say that, you know, you have to rent a certain amount, otherwise it will lapse. So you condition it upon having a certain member of service, and if you don't, it goes away. You can probably do that, but then the opposite side of that is that then you're forcing people to give up the housing, full year housing, in order to maintain their CUPs by renting out renting out a certain minimum number to maintain these CUP. So it's a policy issue for the council.
Can I inject something here? We have an inclusionary housing ordinance that is not being kept up to the level it should be. We've just approved 2 projects, the Trailhead project and the Museum project, and there's absolutely no inclusionary housing. And we've came up to the conclusion that, or the Planning Commission came to the conclusion that they really didn't need it. It should be an ordinance. It should be mandatory that you provide housing when new projects are built. I mean, that's just one more point that we need to try to understand here.
And the ordinance does require that, and so the issue on...
But how are huge projects getting away? That we know there's more employees that are going to be housed, that are going to be working there. How are these businesses getting away with saying that, oh, well, we don't need to do that because we're not going to expand our employee base?
May I?
That would be our code enforcement.
Yes, please.
The trailhead, the Conservancy was able to demonstrate that they are moving employees from the Conservancy house that's now on 3rd Street, and that they actually have 3 spaces in that building that can be used for employee housing if they need it. The Vons has made the same argument, that they're shutting down to existing locations and moving to the new location. I believe the mitigation monitoring plan for Vons requires that they still have to provide us with an inclusionary housing plan once they're ready to open, and that the conditions of approval imposed by the City Council was that both the new Vons and the old locations would have to prove how many employees are going to be using.
Yeah, there is for the Vons thing. So this is all a lot of code enforcement, and it's the conditions of approval. So what the Vons conditions of approval that the council imposed was that there be a plan that Vons has to submit that says how many employees were employed at both sites, and how many employees are going to be employed at the new combined site, and that we can have the ability to monitor the number of employees. And if in fact it turns out that they're adding employees, then they have to provide the inclusionary housing.
That's after the fact, though.
Yeah.
Well,
so we have code enforcement after the fact that they've already built the store, go out and say, well, now you have to go build housing for your employees because you have more than you said?
They have to submit a plan. They have to submit a plan in accordance with the conditions of approval that says that there is no additional housing. If there is additional housing, they have to provide it before they start construction. If they say that there's no additional housing and we catch them a year later, that's when we have code enforcement. Code enforcement is a year-round thing where if we put conditions on them and we find out that they're not abiding by it, we can enforce it, and ultimately we can shut them down.
How can you catch them? You ask for their books?
Yes.
And okay.
Our code enforcement are prepared to do that.
They can do that.
Well,
I think it's a very difficult post-development thing to do, and I think realistically that is very difficult, and so there might be some other mechanisms that you might use. And may I just comment, because I was curious, to the extent that you can demonstrate that there's an impact of, let's go back to vacation rentals to talk about this, that there's an impact on affordable housing. I believe that you can assess a cost or a charge that could go into an affordable housing fund for that either, so they either
like a housing impact fee,
like a housing impact fee, and that could go in. And I think you have the authority under the general plan to do that, but you'd have to document some way what that amount is. So that could go into your so you would say so. But to the extent that you raise TOT, transit occupancy tax takes a vote of the people. It would take a vote to do that, but I think there may well be impacts of to some extent that you could justify you either build a housing or you pay an in lieu fee, and that's the housing. That's your housing impact fee.
Right.
And it may be that that's by the nature of our beast here, a wonderful, beautiful beast it is, our community. That's something that you want to seriously have us look at, and how we can do that so that we can ensure affordable housing, and that people who work for the city are not kicked out of their housing because it gets more profitable, so they have to go live in a hotel over the months, and there are people in our workforce who've had that happen to them, so that there is some form of housing that's available on a permanent basis.
And one of the changes that we made to the transient code a few years ago, if you'll recall, was we imposed the condition is that you cannot evict a year-round tenant within 2 years of applying for a transient rental. And that was our goal, was to hopefully prevent exactly what David was suggesting, that people just get kicked to the curb because they want to make a transient rental out of it. Somebody sells their property and they had tenants, that we have no control over that. I think in my mind, the biggest challenge in front of us is finding a place to put housing. I think we can generate in lieu fees, and we can charge fees, and we can require employers to even provide housing. where are you going to put it? And even now, layered on top of that is this horrible situation with water. There's no water for additional housing. So if we can solve our water problem, and if we can miraculously find some land to put housing on, then I think it's easier to convince people that to pay the fees into housing funds and pay those in lieu fees, because they actually see housing happening. So we have a major job in front of us to try to solve that.
Mayor, if I may, the planning director, I think, points out something. There's a convergence, I think, of interests. There's a convergence of interest by the city council, the elected leaders, on this issue of affordable housing. There's convergence of businesses and large landowners that there's a need for affordable housing. So there's really an opportunity for all of us to look at this picture, and there are sites that could, some are owned privately by smaller entities, but I think there's a whole convergence of issue, because we realize that the workforce is critical to the success of our community, and that we need to be in a position to provide housing that's affordable for them in order to live. So I think there's just converging.
Yeah. But then also on the flip side of it is, looking at the water crisis that we're in now, our vacation rental statistics are generally quite a bit higher in the seasonal months, the summer months. So there's, obviously this is where we get the larger draw in the water and whatnot. And, I guess there is something to be said for the fact that a lot of those places may be vacant during the winter. And so for 9 months of the year, or 8 months of the year, that's, less of an impact on our water versus having year-round housing or year-round tenants. So, I'm certainly sympathetic to that too, but I don't know. Mayor, I'd like to hear from the public,
Yeah,
too.
exactly. That's right. I was going to say let them go, because I think, I thought some of this stuff we have been discussing, and I guess it's time to get planning in there, really working on what are all the different options and blah, and,
We can do that.
We just, because you've heard stuff here, you're going to hear more from the audience today, and if we're looking at trying to maximize and knowing that we want to go towards housing and the issues that are the concerns and the direction they want to go, they do have to, like you say, that convergence needs to happen, and I think we have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. So come on, is your name Tom?
Yeah.
Good.
Hey, glad all of that discussion kind of got out of the way, because all of that's really important. For sure, it's not just vacation rentals. I think that there's kind of a finger being pointed at vacation rentals as an industry, but really it's the industry of this entire community. It's hospitality travel. We're to single out someone who wants to occupy their property themselves for 2 weeks and wants someone else to be in it, as opposed to an entrepreneur who's purchased a hotel, I think is kind of going down the wrong path. I want to be here to be part of solutions to what the actual problems are, and I hope that we can come to a place where we can make a task force or subcommittee, especially including some or all of you, as well as planning, and just have those conversations. And Mayor Marshall, I don't think it's something that will take us, 6 months to get a plan of action and show the community that we're doing what we think is best for it. I think we can work hard, and we can have meetings where we're getting things done. As I said, I've done this in 6 cities before this, and I wouldn't even say that I'm coming to the table and saying, our taxes are fine. I'm not coming and saying that we shouldn't do something with the resources that are spent on those $12 per year properties. But there's a number of factors, and Cindy and yourself just brought it up. If there was a family living in that 2-bedroom home year-round, what is the water impact at that point? As opposed to, certainly I wish we could rent 40 weeks a year, but that's not even close to the numbers of occupancy that we're looking at. So,
and that's why, I hate to interrupt, but that's why I would like to know from Edison's perspective, what is the difference?
And there is a possibility, Mayor, that we can come to that information on our own and possibly faster than Edison. If we can possibly carve out in some way a portion of the TOT that's already being paid to do some kind of analysis independently, I think we can get there a lot faster. And then we can actually ask the right questions from whatever auditor that we need to have to get us to that point. But by all means, I'll write you guys a letter tomorrow, but certainly I would love to be involved in this process. And I definitely welcome other community members as well. Definitely anybody who has a problem, I want it to be an open forum, and we'll get through these challenges. We really will. And I don't think it really needs to be changing the rights of existing or future residents. I mean, the impact on just the ability to sell a home in Avalon is drastically changed. I've watched this happen in cities, including Mammoth, which has a really strict vacation rental ordinance. As soon as their vacation rental ordinance got strict, everybody dropped off the program and did it illegally and didn't go through. And pocketed all that money. I've also seen where kind of threats of suspensions or moratoriums on permits. The P in CUP is permit, right? I've seen just any kind of action or hint toward that from city government has caused people to lose escrows, fall out of escrow. No, I was going to use this as a vacation rental for the 3 months that I spend in, Turkey. But now that I can't, this doesn't make economic sense anymore. And I mean, by and large, these places are empty, and just for the security of the property and the upkeep of these neighborhoods that we're in, it's great to not have an empty house for 365 days a year. So, I mean, we're in those properties all of the time. There's inspections. We have a responsibility to the community to to come back on items, any noise disturbances or anything like that. So, we're involved and we're here, and we want to help everybody figure out all of the little things that that can make this plan better. Thanks.
So So I'm going to let you be seated, and then if anybody else is going to duplicate what he says, we know there's some of you who feel that way, so that's probably fine. If there's anybody who wants to make a different kind of comment other than what he's touched, because you were very broad and I think very broad but specific, and I think we all know every one of those things that you've said as well.
Sure.
So is there anybody else that wants to add to that or say something different?
Well, I do want to add, though, that he made a comment but didn't elaborate on it, and it's been talked about at least the 6 years that I participated in Planning Commission, that it's very difficult to tell a homeowner what they can and cannot do with their property. And I think that also needs to be part of the discussion. Sure. And one of the areas, and Amanda has done a remarkable job of going back through time and putting all this together, but we had broad discussions about saturation, and one of the things we get now the Planning Commission gets now in their packets is a sort of a saturation map, because when you look at the owner occupied property in the flats, for example, who's surrounded by 10 different vacation rentals, that's an impact to their way of life, because they're now dealing with visitors for 3 or 4 months a year, and instead of it being a sort of quiet suburb of each street, it becomes a party street for certain months of the year. So those have been conversations that have come up in the last several years, and they're very valid. I know what it's like having a vacation rental above me, and it's, sometimes difficult, and then, you get 9 months of year of peace and quiet, and all of a sudden it comes back up again. So I think those are pieces of information we need to take into consideration too, is what does it make for the quality of life for the people in the surrounding area. Sorry, Sandy.
Jim and Sandy, both of them.
So Thomas did touch just briefly on something that I've been witness to in two of the communities where I worked prior. When there were caps or moratoriums placed on issuing new, they were called temporary rental permits in both of those communities, it immediately drove the business underground, whether it was Craigslist or Airbnb or VRBO. It just took it there immediately overnight, and then the city was completely absent the revenue. And it still took housing out of the environment for workers. But what those same communities are now facing, and I'm still on a lot of their news feeds and watching them, is the overwhelming cost of enforcement in trying to bring those rogue rental facilities into the guidelines that they put in place very wisely for those who have conformed. Water-saving toilets, water-saving shower heads, fire extinguishers, and so on. And they're dealing with a huge issue in finding the funds to staff the code enforcement to make even those rogue rentals safe for the ones who are renting them. So that's just another dynamic to keep in mind as you go forward in this conversation. And I think the sort of in the quick there, the comment that the chamber might play a role in helping to determine the housing needs, I think that's very appropriate, and we'd welcome that opportunity to help do that. Thank you.
I guess what I hope, though, that everybody that owns a piece of property in Avalon loves Avalon. To just want to take because it's a good investment. I guess that's what's hurtful to me. It's, and I guess maybe because I'm not, it's just, well, that's a good investment, so by God, I'm going to buy that. And this is a really special, unique place. And I think we need the vacation rentals and the realtors, people to say, this is a special and unique place. And these are our issues. And, I guess you can't touch on somebody's conscience, but I guess that's part of, we are so limited and so tight. So anyway, go ahead.
I just wanted to say something that I think you have to realize you can only go forward. I ask, and I guess we don't know how many people have, say, grandfathered rental units that do not have CUPs that you can change things on. You can't go back and retroactively put new restrictions on a CUP. The conditional use they got when they got it is there, and that is there forever. And even the ones now, how many people can you sleep? 2 to a bedroom, this and that. Back in the day, they didn't do all of that. So I've got my paperwork for a CUP, and I know what it says, and it's not what it says today. So I think, when you're trying to think about this, it's got to be thought that you're going forward. You can't go backward and change, at least you can't change the CUPs. And you really have to think about Verbo and Airbnbs in trying to balance that out. But you can't, so I asked that question. If half of the rentals are with CUPs, that half is that half, and they're not all the same. They've got different conditions depending when they were granted. So, that's got to be something when you're trying to figure out how much more you can generate or whatever.
Well, you are a member of the Planning Commission, so you will be the first line of that to bring that
I know,
forward.
But I was up here personally, and I am absolutely surrounded by CUPs on all the sides.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Time for Pete.
Me again. Well, I have some personal experience with some units as far as people buying them. I don't think that the transient rental permits are directly related to the housing situation here. I mean, if somebody's going to buy a $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 unit, they're not going to rent it out year round for $1,500 a month. They're just not going to do it. And my experience mostly has been with people that are they want a place for themselves. They can't afford to move here. They want to come here whatever they can, a month, 2 months a year, and they just want to rent it out when they're not here. And a lot of them have done that, and then 6, 8, 10 years later they've retired, then they've moved here. But I don't think you can hang the year-round housing on the transient rental market. It just doesn't pencil out.
Yeah, no, I hear
Maybe not exclusively. Get up there right now, Danny. I'm just going to make a quick comment. We're not trying to get rid of vacation rentals. What we're trying to do is define exactly how many we have, what their uses are. Sandy just made some really good points. We had a vehicle ordinance that we changed. We had 1,000 golf carts, and we had 1,200 full-size vehicles. Now we have 400 full-size vehicles, and we have over 3,000 golf carts. What we want to do is make sure, too much of a good thing is not necessarily a good thing. We got a serious traffic problem here now. We want to avoid any problems that we might be able to run into in the future because of what the effects of these houses might have on communities, not just on the housing, but other neighbors to those houses as well. So we need to define, and Tommy made some great points, and we'll go forward with that. Plan of action committee, a task force, something like that might be really good, and to have some neutral members of the community in on that too, not just people who work for Catalina Island Vacation Rentals and own condos. We want people from the community that will actually give us some input that it's not biased in any way, shape, or form, or can't be marked as biased. Not that you are, because it sounds like you're pretty open-minded, but you do work for vacation rentals. So we're not trying to stop a good thing. We're trying to understand it better so that it doesn't become a problem in the future. I absolutely agree with Councilman Cassidy's bringing this item to the table. I think it's a great suggestion, and I think we're going to come up to some good conclusions because of it. Danny.
Very briefly, Denny Hunsey, 129 Olive and Catalina Island Vacation Rentals. Annie, you made a comment. I just wanted to respond to it. People coming over here that don't love the island. I don't know of any of our owners that came here to buy something as an investment and make money off of it. They, by and large, I can't think of one that didn't come here to purchase their little dream on Catalina Island because they love this island. And I've got 150 plus homeowners that are very, very concerned about what's going on here. They love the community. You know those that own properties on Descanso, and you know how much they love the island, and that's why they have us to help manage their place so that they can feel comfortable at night, and they really are looking for the direction from the council to get us through some of these problems. But as far as vacation rental property owner coming here just to make money, I think they'd be much better off buying an apartment complex someplace on the mainland to have it as a year-round rental investment, because they're here because they love the place, they want to spend time in their house, and they also want us to help them make some money on it as a vacation rental and help to get some money into the coffers of the city of Avalon.
Well, I stand corrected. That was very well said. Thank you, Denny.
Well, thank you.
Very nice.
So, Mayor, I will. Oh, wait. Go ahead, Paula, and I'll wrap up.
All of that, this is growing pains. I mean, this is really severe stuff, but all of that all ties back to water. It really, like the vacation rental situation, I think about so much. Those people that come, do they know? Do they get it? I mean, signs are everywhere, but does it really hit home? And are we doing enough in vacation rentals as owners, as agencies that rent, to make sure that people aren't going so nuts over water that it's, because we see what's happened this summer as far as where we were and where we are, and we can't supply water for our people. We, as residents of this town, have cut the water usage in our own homes, at way more, 40%. But that's residents. We have to ask the same for our people that come to visit. It's not too much to ask.
And that is a question that we are asking, for sure. But what he's going to say, but I know you've been working hard at keeping that one.
We do ask, we do inform, and each and every person that comes and checks in, we tell them about the water crisis, and invariably they say, hey, we live in Southern California, we understand. We have timers in each shower, a little thing that you turn, and that reminds them to be very efficient, and we have been shutting off washing machines. And I've been catching a ration from many moms that came over with a family for a week, and they don't have a laundry service, they don't have a washing machine. And some of them, we've enlisted Rock's help, and he's picked up laundry, taken it out, and brought it back. So we're being very proactive with it, and we're continuing to search out more ways to be more conscientious. We've got the Edison low flow installed in all of our properties. And we're going to continue working at that. And I think by and large, our visitors they come here because they love it too. And they are listening to us, and they're also helping reduce the water usage. So we'll continue with that.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Big time. Okay.
So then, yeah, Mayor, so just to wrap up, part of the importance to me to put this item on the agenda as discussion only is because we have seen recently that folks have learned about a discussion or a decision we've made after the fact. And so I wanted this to be a discussion, and I want to ask members of the community to please reach out to the council with your information, pro or con, or whatever you want to share with us. But I would like to ask you to include all 5 council members. You can go to the cityofavalon.com website, go into government, all of our emails. If you click the button, it's our first initial, last name, and at cityofavalon.com. Please include all of us so that we are all armed with comments from the public when we come back with data at a later time or when we have discussion. But that was the purpose of this, is to get information from the community.
And because we can't talk about stuff because of the Brown Act, if we know what you're all saying, it really helps us to all, because we can't share with more than one, and anyway, so it gets kind of confusing. So, but somebody else wanted to speak.
Andrea Karstarpin, 25 Cabrillo Drive, and I just was watching this on TV, and I was hearing everybody who's pro vacation rentals, and I'm not against them, but I do know, having grown up here, I've seen the changes with the increase of vacation rentals that has on the community. And I think sometimes it's not, you see it like on holidays. You see Halloween, Christmas. When I was growing up, or we had a lot of locals renting or owning houses, a lot of lights, a lot more trick-or-treaters. It was a community. Now, no lights, no homes for candy. And I know that sounds dumb, but that's what the community was about. Now, most locals who don't own are renting. They're renting in substandard apartments or homes. They're doing subsidized housing in either Eucalyptus Hills or the Lower Tremont. And where I think a lot of locals want to live in a home, not with somebody on top, bottom, and on sides. They want to own a home. And I hear you guys talk about affordable housing, but what about quality housing, homes, not something subsidized? Because that's what I think what a lot of locals want to do. They want to stay here. They have roots here. They want to grow old here. They want to pass that property on to their children. And that opportunity is gone. And you can see it in a lot of the locals who have moved off, who are retired, or on the mainland, because they can't afford it here. And I know, I heard Amanda say, and I think I agree, that the vacation rentals did have an impact on the prices of property. And at least that's my belief. I'm not an expert, but I think that's what a lot of locals believe. I hear people talk, and that seems to be the consensus. And when somebody else, I think, also said about kicking somebody out or whatever, when somebody wants to buy a property, I have firsthand knowledge of my office manager who had a very nice apartment, one of the better places she's lived on the island. And she was there when the real estate agent brought the potential owner up to inspect her apartment. And he, right in front of her face, told her this would be a great vacation rental. You can, apply and all of that. And sure enough, he bought the property, and that's what happened, and she lost that housing. So I'm just, saying, I don't know what the answer is, but I think you need to find a solution. And I think the also thing I heard Cindy say is about telling property owners what they can and can't do with their property. I think when you buy a home here, like you said, you're part of the community, and I think you want to do what's best. My husband and I have talked about moving perhaps moving somewhere else, and we would never, although we can't because it's Fairview, but even if we could, we wouldn't vacation rent it. We would want to rent it year-round to help a local family, somebody who really needs it. And I don't think that the members, the locals and the people of this community, have to sit back while people are buying a second home because they can't afford that second home. They decide to vacation rent it to help pay for that mortgage, and then they come here for a couple of weeks in the summer. And like you said, it's an investment to them. But this is our home, our community. This is for people, I think, who want to stay here, and like I said, be a part of it for a while. And so that's just it. Sorry.
That's an emotional issue, I could tell, and thank you. And I will have to comment, though, because I live on Descanso, and it's the best street in Avalon. And Halloween, I got my pumpkin out there and a couple lights, and you got Judy Greer down the street, you got one here, and you got there, and you got the halls. That's it.
Andrea,
four
thank
houses
you.
now.
You made some very good points.
So I know, and that is community. So thank you.
I think that's more than just an emotional aspect. She made some good points.
Okay. So what's the direction?
There isn't any. Just
okay, but yes, there is. Yes, there is. Okay, do we want to take Tom's recommendation and get a little committee together, or the planning department, whatever? Or do you want to sit and talk with them and come up with a plan?
If you create a committee, it's subject to the Brown Act.
Right.
So if they create a committee it's not subject to the Brown Act.
Okay, but what if Amanda creates a committee?
Jim need to create it.
She's got the planning commission.
Jim would need to create it.
Oh, Jim. Okay, well, you've got the planning commission already. So.
But that's subject to the Brown Act too. So I mean.
So perhaps what would be helpful is if you want to give it a couple of weeks for people to respond to Cindy's call for comments and information, and then you can say, if the community wants to make a committee to talk about A and B, then as far as I know, outside of city hours and on my own time, I can be part of the committee.
What you said subject to the Brown Act? What is?
I mean, you have to have public notice. You have to. People can't talk among themselves.
You mean in the people in the committee
Yes.
can't talk outside of the meeting?
Correct.
Okay, well that's legit. I mean, it's straight up.
But I think it would be helpful to have some idea of what
I know.
issue you want us.
Right.
What's the nut you really want us to crack? So.
So my understanding of how this all works is that we have a discussion, and if we wanted to bring back an item for direction at, say, the next city council meeting, that would be defined. So the definition could be, I'm not saying it is, but the definition could be that we recommend that the city council authorize a subcommittee to discuss housing in Avalon to consist of 2 council members, 2 planning commissioners, and 5 members of the community. That would be, and then what would be the direction we would want that committee to go after?
What issue you would want them to change?
What issue?
Okay, when we're going to be doing our strategic planning in September, right? I guess I don't know if we've got a date yet, but end of the month. And one of the things probably as our goal would be affordable, will be housing, okay? And then I guess I don't know if one of the things we talk about is, well, how do we want to handle the vacation rentals in terms of, first of all, do we want to review what's currently on the books, like the surrounding area thing? Do we want to deal with
Saturation, which
Saturation.
we already
know.
Yeah.
We already
Okay,
have
we
all
already
that.
know, but, okay, so we know what the saturation, well, we know there's 350 units, but the whole thing about the areas of town, and I'm assuming we're all copacetic, because if we can't change the ones that are already there, and I've already got the 3 around me, and I guess it's 3 or 4, whatever the parameter
cannot
is.
completely surround a year-round occupied.
Okay, so if we've been following that little rule, so we don't need to really look at that. Do we want to look at, okay, but housing is an issue, so we want to make sure that for those people that are just paying $12, maybe there is some other thing, like what Oli is suggesting in the whatever.
I think most of those are homes that are owner occupied, and they rent it supposedly 2 nights a year to keep the permit active as an asset for their property.
Well, I know, and is that our concern?
So let me just
I guess
add,
it's a question.
there's 2 legal issues that have come up tonight. The first legal issue is going forward in the future, can we call it a permit or a license to operate?
Right.
So we could look at that, and I could report back to the council on that. That's one legal issue, because that may govern what you decide to do. If we come back and say, no, it's a CUP, is a CUP, and it lives forever, that may color your consideration. And the second legal issue that you've asked is it possible to condition a CUP on a certain amount of use? In other words, do you want to legally say you have to have X number of nights or X number of dollars? Can we legally do that?
Can it be equivalent to the price of the permit? Or whatever that dollar come up with, how much it costs us to do everything.
It's just a matter of what is there a legal way to condition it on a certain amount of use?
Because if there's going to be no change, why do we need a committee? I mean,
well, there may
right,
be other
things. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that Scott has a little bit of direction, but if we were to just create a community, we have to notice that we're going to create a community.
Yeah. I mean, to hear the emotional sides and the whatevers, from the people that rent and there's no win or lose. I mean, it's just, it's 2 issues, and then we would have to say, well, I guess nice discussion, but business as usual.
I enjoyed Amanda's injecture. We need to just hear from our public first. Then we can understand how we can go ahead with this, what area we can go ahead. And I'd definitely like to direct Scott to look into the 2 legal items that he was discussing earlier, so that we can understand exactly what our reign over this is as a council.
Let me just say, if I may, council member, is that there's also cities throughout up and down the coast and in the inlands that have vacation rental. Malibu, for example, I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying Malibu prohibits vacation rentals. Some cities allow them. Tahoe has a different, South Shore, North Shore. So there's a lot of information out there, and I would think that some of that might be readily available through the League of California Cities that collects that. So rather than do original research, that back to that there might be already available that you would want us to look at too.
Yes.
Just what the parameters that other cities that are general law have done.
I would like you to look at that, because that would give us information that's already out there, like you say.
And I'd like that to come through the planning department.
Yeah, well, the Planning Commission would be a good venue, because let them vet issues. Ultimately, the City Council will make decisions that relate to the matter, but it's a good opportunity to vet issues, I think.
The only problem with that is that it's being raised at City Council. We have council members who are interested in the participation and the knowledge, and we cannot participate in Planning Commission meetings. So that's where, I'm saying I want to have a 3 or 4 hour conversation with you, Thomas, and I want to have a conversation with you too, but another 3 hour conversation. But there are so many hours in the day with all of our city issues right now. I'm saying, I want to hear from the public on the concerns, whatever side of it you're on, and I'm happy to pull together a group. The last time I pulled together a group to talk about 2 years ago to talk about the impacts of Phase 3 water rationing, which I'll remind you we're in now, there were a lot of people upset, both in the community and on the council, that I was having meetings that weren't, being inclusive. So I'm saying with this very important issue, I want this to be a public discussion as much as it can be, and I do want to pull together a group of the community where we're better utilizing all of our time and not 4 hours here, 4 hours there, 4 hours there, reiterating, well, in this conversation I had and then in that one. Just put us all at a table and let's talk. But I think in order to do that, to give the direction, we have to bring that back and notice it as direction.
Yes.
Well, are you required to do that? I form my own committee and invite council?
And then you show up.
And then you show, no.
No.
Well, we did it with Reclaim.
Two can show up.
Two can show up.
Just two.
Right.
Yeah.
Give you a quorum.
I'd be interested in forming a community group and having a response from the city and as much support as we can. Maybe even some facilities so that it's here. If you have a conference room or something. And then definitely we'll figure out how to get your feedback there. And I think we can get it going a lot quicker than dealing with the ground.
Can Amanda come to that meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, though, the more you're transparent in the process, and then no one should fear the Brown Act. It's so that the public has an opportunity to hear what's being said behind doors. And so I frankly don't. However, if you form it, though, you could still invite people from the public, and the public could feel that they're also being informed. That's just a thought.
And that would be a goal for sure, is to have it be an open meeting, and all are welcome to attend and comment.
And then you set the agenda.
Would there be? We don't have anything to do with that, though, right? That's his thing. But who informs him of the Brown Act? I mean, is that something that he information?
He's okay now.
You wouldn't have to comply with the Brown Act. The only issue is that you can only have 2 council people attend
That's
at
the
a
only
time.
issue. Okay.
And we know that.
No problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
What if 3 showed up? Would they be on their own?
They could. They would have to leave.
They can't do it.
One of us can't do it.
One of them would have to leave.
Okay.
I'll come get them.
Any further comments on this topic? Okay. All righty.
Thank you. Great discussion.
And this discussion creates more discussion. So this is good.
That's good.
I think we're not done.
One more.
I know. Item 8.
Thanks for your input, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
To save some time, can I make a suggestion? At one time, the Planning Commission would not hear an application unless there was a letter, a service letter. And we changed that a couple years ago. They wouldn't hear the application until they had water.
Right, I know.
Right. Why don't we just go back to that?
What? What are you talking about?
Planning Commission the applicant needed to have a will-serve letter from Edison before the application was heard at the Planning Commission level.
For water?
Yeah.
But one of the things we're talking about is the potential that vacation rentals use less water.
No,
than a year
I'm on the
round.
next item.
Oh, he's
on the next item.
Oh, got it.
I followed you, but yeah. Item number 8, discussion of potential. Okay, but I hear what you're saying. However, I'm not totally getting that because they can get a letter from Edison to say that there's water for them, and we don't have any way to stop that. And I think, because I think some of their situation is that, fine, just because we have water, a little bit of water tomorrow, and then, but let's see, I've said it before, it's, for example, and I just have to use the trailhead, okay? The trailhead, when they get open, is probably going to apply for a whatever, and they're going to get it because they're an educational thing, and it goes totally around us, and we can't stop them from getting water. And they're going to say, or something that hasn't been built. Go ahead. Or something that hasn't been built in a long time. It's not like that water's been sitting in a bank somewhere. They're going to say they have that water.
Can we start with my staff report?
Yep.
Oh, was this yours?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, read it.
Okay, well, excuse me, Scott. Go ahead. Sorry. Yes,
All right,
sir.
so the purpose of this item, as directed by the city manager, was to initiate a discussion on the ability of the city to enact a growth management ordinance or regulations that would allow the city to participate in decisions on water allocations. Currently, the city policy is that you do not get a you do not get a permit for anything if you cannot prove a water allocation. The exception to that has been that to encourage to allow the building industry to exist is that people can come in, they can go through the entitlement process, but they can't connect to water, and except for the fire. There may be instances, and so that's what the current policy is. Under California law, the city has the ability, as a separate governmental entity, separate and apart from Edison, to decide its own rules with respect to when it will issue permits or entitlements outside of Edison's allocation.
What is that?
Okay, Edison can issue allocations or they cannot issue allocations. Okay? Those allocations then, that person has the right to receive water from Edison. And current policy of the city is that allows them to go forward with their entitlements here. You have the legal ability to determine that even if Edison provides an allocation, or if they don't provide an allocation, we can on ourselves evaluate whether it is appropriate use of water to allow someone to go forward. For instance, you could decide that in stage one, when you're still asking people to conserve and you're still putting on certain restrictions, Edison allows certain allocations. You can decide, no, we're not going to allow any, period. And so the purpose of this discussion today is to have the council give direction, if you want to, on what types of regulations, city regulations of water that you want to have, which is consistent with your general plan, which gives you the ability to do that. So you could tie everything exactly to Edison, which is what you've done with the exception of building, and you just don't connect. You could develop your own ordinance and your own standards for when you think water allocations or permits should be granted for city entitlements. And you can do that with standards, specific standards, so it's a case by case, so you can set general rules that either you as a body or the planning commission can execute, or you could develop your own rules independent of Edison's rules based upon when you will grant permits. The only thing you cannot do under California law is tell Edison when it can issue water allocations. Because they're a separate public entity and they're the water purveyor, you can't tell Edison, no, you can't issue a water allocation. But you have the ability as the public entity and the government to determine for yourself whether you think those allocations should be honored in Avalon by our city permit process. In other words, you get a building permit or not. So Edison can say, yes, we're going to give you an allocation. The city can separately, if supported by facts, say, no, we're not going to allow you to build because we're not, we think that there are other reasons. For instance, in Lake Arrowhead, we've had a moratorium for 8 years now because Lake Arrowhead does not have a permanent solution, long-term solution for water. So we have limited the number of permits that are issued because of the fact that there's no permanent. So until there's a permanent long-term water solution, you have the legal ability to impose your own rules on water allocations in terms of how you will honor them or respect them when it comes to city entitlements. We're talking about is city entitlements, building permits, any kind of construction, remodels, etc. You have the legal ability to set your own rules. And so with that in mind, that's the general opening, and it's really a policy issue for the city. You can tie it to Edison's, you can develop your own simple rule, or you can develop it on a case-by-case basis. or you can do nothing. And so it's up to you to give us direction on what you'd like us to consider and draft, and then whatever you do, we will come forward with an ordinance or policy to enact that.
Mayor, I think the genesis of this, the reason is that there was concern expressed at the council, and there was concern expressed in the community about allocations that have been made that were deemed or thought not to be a priority. What to tag on what the city attorney said is that it would seem that you in the general plan have adopted policies and procedures and to some degree set priorities of what the city government, the elected leaders, think are important. And that is your constitution. In California law, in Supreme Court, 2 cases have said that that's the constitution of what develops and what doesn't develop. So the question then becomes on an individual application is the proposal in this case I'm not talking about the M word. I'm not talking about that, but is the proposal consistent with goals and policies of the general plan? Does it promote, for example, affordable housing for all people, for all incomes, as state law requires? Does it promote other goals and objectives in the general plan? And I don't know that this has to be complicated. Simply that there probably needs to be some implementation rules that would guide a rational people to make decisions. But this was the genesis of it, was concern about allocations, and the fact that most cities in California that I'm aware of, and I've only been in 7, worked in 7, city manager. This is the 8th, but it's the 7th again. Is that the city councils have a great say through their general plan in what is done and what is not done in land use, and that is why you're elected. And so we need to just to get some idea. Do you want us to pursue this and come back with some suggestions, or how you would give back control, if you will, to the council on enforcing policies in your general plan as they relate to building?
And this would be also, when you look at the Edison tariff, this was mentioned in an email today to me, which is consistent with what I've said. It's just a matter of the city council taking action. The tariff currently reads that for freshwater allocation, and this is if water is available up to the safe annual yield, that an applicant for water will obtain an authorization from the city for consideration of water, an allocation.
I've been showing you this for 2 years,
and
I'm really disappointed that it's taken 2 years to get here.
Again, remember, we did have an ordinance that dealt with this 2 years ago, and the council rejected that ordinance.
Well, no, the one where it gave us back control, though. I have shown that control letter to people, and it hasn't gotten anywhere. So that's why it is here today, and I'm very excited that it's here because I think we need to. It's a great tool for us.
It's a no-brainer to me.
What's that?
It's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah. Gives us another
I
tool.
do have a question, though, because there are some other implications, and this is a question for you, Pete. Because one of the things that we could do, because I think we're catching a little flack of, so you do that. So we're going to have a moratorium, and then all the builders come up and say, "Well, that's not really right." Because can I talk about what are you looking at me like that?
I apologize. I was just talking
and I
to
was looking at him.
No, he was.
I was talking to myself.
Oh,
and I apologize.
No, and I was
have
looking.
the worst conversations with myself.
No, and I was.
I apologize.
And I was talking to Scott. So if I'm saying something, so you were okay. Anyway, so did you get that on tape? So there was a discussion about, we were going to do a moratorium. There was a discussion about moratorium, and then the builders come up and say, well, no, allow us to just keep working. We need to make money, so allow us to keep working. So we said, okay, build. Now y'all are building, and there's no water. How's that working? What's that all about? Do you have places that are now sitting there that because you're a very active man, and maybe
I'm actually in the building business. So several years ago, there was this idea that people were held up. They couldn't even apply to this planning commission until they had their water allocation. So it was like, okay, well, let them go through the process, let them build, and if at the time they're finished there's no water, then they either lock it up with a active fire sprinkler system, since unless you're having a lot of fires, you won't need it, and won't use water. Or the idea was that then they could either provide their own water until such time as water became available. And this was the old personal desal thing, which seemed like a, pretty simple, no-brainer solution. If they wanted to go through the money and spend the money and put their own desal unit in until such time as Edison has water, it seemed like no problem. However, it's been a little gummed up. So the idea, in my opinion, of trying to stop the building for lack of water is the same thing as, it's like arguing over who gets the glass of water. Do we get to keep it, or do we give it to the new guy? We don't want to give him the new glass. It's our glass of water. It's the same thing, who gets to turn the light bulb on. In my opinion, make some water, move on, do something else. It's not, you can argue about this and you can stop it. It's just that there's been a problem with water since I've gotten here. It's never been addressed. City of Lake Arrowhead apparently has not quite got their act together over there yet either. And so, we are fortunate here that we have a huge body of water that happens to have salt in it right outside. So Lake Arrowhead doesn't have that.
I'm sorry, but I understand that. But my question is, how many places, because you know all the other builders in town, how many places are going to be sitting there for a couple of years waiting for water with all the construction that's going on?
That have been sitting waiting for water. There's one that we did, that we started under the auspices so that he was going to put his own personal desal unit in if it hadn't rained. Oddly enough, it hasn't rained. And then several months ago, when the study was brought forth that it would take, the Supreme Court couldn't even get through all the bullshit basically to approve a personal desal unit. Nothing's really happened. It just, everybody sort of just stopped. So he stopped waiting to see what was going to go on. I mean, the reality nowadays, there's a guy I've talked to who has a desal unit, size of a sewing machine, a little case, $5,000. You plug it in, it takes about as much electricity as a refrigerator. You make 35 to 40 gallons an hour. You're going to see some of those. Well, you won't see them, but people will be bringing them, and they're plugging them in. They're going to use them. It puts out cleaner water than is available from the city tap. It increases the affluence about 15% higher than normal salt water.
The only ones we really won't know about are the guy who just had the brand new construction. Those are the only ones we're not going to know, because they won't get an occupancy permit because they don't have water.
Sure.
I'm sorry? For what?
Well, we have two. We have one that's very interesting, because he's the guy on the requirements is proposing to put in a drinkable air system.
I know the one Scott's doing there, that's what they're considering.
That doesn't have any outflow. So that's a whole nother discussion that should take several hundred attorneys to resolve in a week or two. So that is, I mean, that's my kind of deal with this, talking about limiting things. I mean, you can do that. There isn't any water. There hasn't been any water for a long time.
Yeah, right.
So we can spend a lot of time screwing around and making little, or we can just, rather than share the glass of water, just like you share the light bulb, make some. I would put my effort towards, and again, it's like there's, this whole thing with meeting with Edison and, and all their staff of legal advisors. I mean, that I'll be dead before they get themselves figured out, and it's not even in their best interest. To put the money out, they won't get it back. It's not. It has to go past Southern California Edison. Makes no sense for them.
Okay.
So, anyway, that's off to the side, but you can certainly limit the building permit process and wait till there's water available, or you can put all your own restrictions on it and all that stuff. And you are affecting some people. You're affecting an industry that is here. I happen to be in it, and I don't think that our industry is any less important than those that benefit from the cruise ships that come and use water, or those that have a hotel that use water, or those that have a restaurant use water, or those that just, and so it's sort of a knee-jerk reaction to, don't let that guy have the glass of water, it's my water. It's what it seems like, so you can spend a lot of effort, or you can just make some more water.
Okay.
So
We're working on it.
Thank you.
I know, but I mean, I just think I just think this is all kind of like something busy to keep to spank the construction industry, and I don't think it's going to be of any use, and I think it's just a big waste of time. I'm also against it, but for obvious reasons.
And
No, we're not limiting anything. We have the ability to do it. That's all we're saying right here. I mean, we're not limiting any construction projects. Matter of fact, we went over our way to make sure that construction projects could continue on. We have to be accountable to the entire community, not just the construction community. And there's a lot of people out there that are going without water right now, and we're really concerned about them, their health, their well-being, and the entire community.
And I agree with you, and I was emailing with the city manager and Amanda previously, couldn't remember all the specifics when we had adopted that ordinance saying that you could move forward. And I might be off topic slightly, but I just want to at least get it out there that when we were in phase 2 and now we're in phase 3 water rationing, water allocations that were previously granted were granted with the stipulations that they couldn't hook up if we were in phase 2, and obviously now we're in phase 3, and I'm assuming that there's stricter rules. And I am not in any way, shape, or form intending to say anything about the museum, but that had set a very uncomfortable precedent in the community that they went forward, and now the trailhead's moving forward, and the allocations were such that they wouldn't be able to hook up in phase 2. And so, what's concerning to some members of the community is, maybe one area has so many gallons per month allocated, and a household that has 5 people in it only has, 30 gallons a day. That makes it a little unfair. And so, if we could have a little more say in what happens in the city, I think that's valuable, that we're actually paying attention to, what projects are moving forward. And I do know, with all due respect, I do know the museum had every intentions of doing this drinkable air thing, but I mean, hey, Edison wants to sell water too, so.
Well, and they couldn't get through Department of Drinking Water on that one.
Right.
So, but Amanda.
Mine was kind of a devil's advocate question. Can the city issue permits and a certificate of occupancy to a home that's not hooked up to Edison water?
Edison water?
Does it require that they get their fresh water from Edison? Do they have to get their fresh water from Edison?
Well, no. The answer is if they, for instance, if they would have their own water, independent of Edison, like either they drilled the well is what happens in other communities, or they brought it in.
Right.
We would not, if they were not dependent on Edison, we would not have the legal ability to deny them a permit.
Could they drill a well?
No.
Why?
I'm asking Scott. I'm asking Scott Campbell if they could drill a well.
They can't.
Not everybody else. Okay. Scott Campbell. Could they drill a well?
People can drill wells on their own property if they own the property, and then it's a matter of, under California law, it's the Wild West with respect to water rights.
They have the water rights.
Thank you, Scott.
They cannot sell it.
Whoever under California law,
sell it.
Under California law, the rule is if you develop your own well and you drill for water and you have water come up through your wells, then you own that water. You can do what you want with that water. If it impacts someone else's water, groundwater, then you get into a whole legal battle and stuff like that.
Like a public municipality. Let's say if we wanted to drill a well back here and the wells up the canyon we're taking from our water out here.
Well, it's first come, first serve.
It's first come, first serve?
First come, first serve.
Okay.
It's first come, first serve.
Then how do you figure on what you just said?
What happens is in most water cases, it's first come, first serve, and then there's a battle of experts that file all these water reports that say, this well didn't impact your water, and it goes into court. We've had one case, Antelope Valley, 20 years, because people were arguing over their water rights, and my well impacted your well, and,
okay, that's
and
why
it
I asked.
didn't, and stuff like that.
Thank you. So where else would the water come from if in a housing unit? It would come from totes. It would come from
people if
a storage unit that they had from the rain.
They could storage unit. They could rain if they could clean it themselves. There's any number. Well, there's not any number, but if they're not connected with Edison, they could build
water maker.
Assuming that
the
air through
the air quality. Yeah,
but go ahead, man. Yeah. I'm sorry, and the purpose of my question was for these 2 or 3 units that are almost finished constructing, that are not getting an allocation from Edison. Can we deny them a certificate of occupancy because they're not hooked up to Edison's fresh water? Do we have the right to deny them a certificate of occupancy?
Yes, if they're not using any water because it's not sanitary
or safe.
Yeah.
You can't flush a toilet; it's not safe.
What toilet? Salt water.
Salt water.
Well, okay. I mean, if you cannot wash your hands, then you're not going to be able to issue a certificate.
But the sanctions are standard. That's a good question.
But if they've got their own water,
if they've got their own water, that's fine. Independent from Edison, yes.
And we just need to make sure that it would be good if it, yeah.
And again, it's got to be an individual, because what the rules are, and Sean Haggerty went through this, is there's a certain number of independent units that people can have, and at some point they become they are recognized by the state as a separate water entity, and the state can stop that. So if it's 1 or 2, it gets more complicated if it grows.
40, right.
But it's better if they just do it independent, and again, not an Avalon, but drilling it's you own the water that you drill, as long as it doesn't impact someone else's water rights. Or the one other stupid legal thing is if you're not in a...
What about the quantity? Let's say someone drills a well and they get 10 gallons a minute and they want to build 50 units.
No.
That doesn't map out, right?
No. Okay. No, it has to be sufficient water to
what they're doing.
To what they're doing.
Conducive to the size and the amount they're going to be using.
And the intensity of the use, yes.
Okay.
So we could have some impact on, just as Edison says, well, they say the average is 30 gallons per person per day, or whatever. Now it's at 40, it might 15. Be a little bit reduced. And I think that another reason this is going on is because it's such an inexact science, the way the gallons are given, and you talk to your neighbor and he's getting 78. I know you're not, and and I'm getting 30. But it's like if they can't make that a science to figure that out, it's like then at least we can say the formula is whatever it is.
I had a guy in Metropole complain to me because he was getting 2,000 gallons of water a month.
That's huge.
No, a day. 2,000 gallons a day was what he had, and he was complaining to me, saying, "Your formula is messed up." I said, "It's not us, it's Edison." He said, "Well, you need to understand what Edison is doing now, because I guess there's a couple properties that are getting 2,000 gallons. That allocation, they're not using that, of course, but he was complaining to me like, you got some problems with your system."
So that's the thing is, that's water that's supposedly. Thank God it's not being used, or we'd be in a worse situation than we are.
Yeah. Well, he actually pointed it out to me, so it's something that we need to get to the bottom of. Yeah. I'm glad this conversation actually came up tonight. Yeah.
Yoli.
I do believe that the city needs to get something on the books that you guys have a little more control of what's going on with development and construction. Definitely not against construction or development as long as it's, within the growth of the city. However, Cindy brought up a valid point, and that's why I ran down here, was to bring up the museum. Probably not going to be very popular tomorrow, but that is just a great example of beating the system. And they were not supposed to open the doors, and the Edison wasn't going to allow it. We all know. They went above and got 740 gallons. I say shame on them. We are in stage 3 now. 740 gallons a day is a lot of water. Our restaurant at the M is only 86 gallons a day of water, and we have many of, Zest, Bombard owns the restaurant that's on our property. But, 86 gallons of water that can supply up to 150 people per event, and they have 740 gallons. That's huge. That's a huge amount of water for a day. And I think it's per month. I just think it's shameful, and I think that the city should have the authority to stop something like that, especially in the dire strait that we are in with our water situation. And it's concerning to me. It should be concerning to everybody in this city that happened. And I don't know what the policies are with the Edison. Does the PUC even come back to the Edison and say, no, it's just a done?
No, I'll tell you the process. They file the informal complaint, and it goes to a gentleman named Bruce DeBerry. He wasn't aware of it, but his staff person read the thing and said, sounds okay to me, sends it to Rosemead. They talked to the gentleman there, and saw the thing, and he says, it looks good. And it was approved in Rosemead.
And so they don't even contact the local Edison company or the city or anybody?
It doesn't go through us at all.
I also just wanted to make sure that there is some sort of clarification. I thought it was 740 gallons a month, which would be 25 gallons a day. It's not. It's 750 per day.
That's what I've been told. 750 a day.
No, it is a day. I know that for a fact.
We got a lot of people voting it.
That's why I'm so upset here, because I'm totally for the museum. It's a beautiful, it's great, right. But shame on them. I'm going to say it. Shame on them. So yeah, thank you. Please put something on the books.
Well, I think this. After in just a moment, but I think this is one of those things we send back to the planning commission, right?
Hey guys,
I
was sitting on my hands all evening, thinking, no, just hold off. This is really important. The life source is the water. We need to do something about the water. I want you to know that 2 years ago I already applied to get 3 desal plants, and the permits were denied because of the paranoia that the discharge would damage the city's pipes. Whatever. Many cities are going through an eminent domain process where they are actually taking their water systems back from the people who have controlled them. And your city attorney probably knows lots about that and can advise you there, but that's a way that you get your water system for free from the Edison, and then you spend the money for the storage tanks, etc. I know people cheat on this water, and you talk about the museum, and was that cheating or was it public need? That's an issue. There's a local place in town that served flights of wine, and they had 4 tables in their window. Now I walk by and there's 12 or 15 windows. I know there's been no allocation of water for them to quadruple their business, but there it is, quadrupled. They do a great business. It's a great place, and their 12 or 15 tables are full all the time. So there's a chance that someone's cheating on their water, getting an allocation and then milking it for more. I want you to know that my Edison bill last month was $4,400. It includes some gas and some electric. This month it was $11,000. It's kicking my butt. I don't know that I can afford to have low-income, year-round residents if I have to pay a water bill that chokes a horse. That's just the plain economics. I would be better off perhaps some months not having them there, especially during the summertime when the cost of the water more than doubles per each gallon that you buy. When people told me about it months ago, I couldn't conceive that that was an agreement or that was going to come to pass. But sure enough, it did. And Edison's really cool. They'll go, hey, well, we can take monthly payments on that. It's like the last thing I want to do at the end of the summer is incur a lot of payments for the winter months when no one's visiting anyway. Okay? So it's just crazy. I understand that builders need to keep building. That's part of keeping builders on the island. So if someone buys a cruddy little house, the millionaire from Newport Beach buys a cruddy little house for $500,000 or $600,000 and puts $300,000 into rehabbing it, that's great. If he puts up a second story, that's great. I just think that bathroom shouldn't be connected to the system. I'm not saying that the investor shouldn't buy the house and take it out of the housing stock, and he should be allowed to do that. That's an investor's right if he wants to damage the city that way. I can't control it. I've talked to him blue in the face at the Planning Commission, and they appear to approve every conditional use permit that comes forward for a decade. What I'm saying is that water is a shortage now, and it makes no sense to issue a building permit that is going to be used until we're back in stage 1, or maybe even cured. But it's asinine to think that if you add more buildings anywhere, even if additional water is created somewhere, that it's going to help anything, because those people still go to restaurants, those people still, it's the load. It's not just a function for the one house that they might live in, it's the load that they bring to the community. And those things are really important. So a moratorium is a logical way to handle this crisis until it all gets resolved. And I think that if there was a little bit of pain for people, that we might have the political strength and the will to go out and make the solution. So I'm just saying that is something you should consider. Stop any building until we're out of the phase 1, or at least at phase 1, because we're not solving anything.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any no further comments?
Back to the Planning Commission.
I think this needs to go back to the Planning Commission. Serious with the information that you've given them. Did we lose Amanda?
We're certainly able to, I think, try to synthesize and bring back to the commission information on avenues that they could to consider and recommend ultimately to you. What I thought I heard from the council was there seemed to be a majority of people on the council who were saying that having the city play a role in who gets water and who doesn't is a good thing. And so based on that framework, we can then work on some specific language that would go to them and come back to you. But and in the near term, not in the long term, in the short term.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And this would only be for permits that require some sort of water allocation. It's obviously not for all.
Right.
So if you're going to add another bedroom or another story or something like that, but a tear down and a rebuild of like kind wouldn't be a
As long as
requirement.
it's same footprint, yeah. I mean, there would.
Yeah. Great. Okay, I believe now we're going into closed session.
Yeah.
We are?
Yes, we have one closed session item. Hang on. It's a liability claim by Ryan Ramming against the city of Athens.
Thank you all for coming and participating this evening. Much appreciated. And good night, Tony. I may not see you.
Good night, Tony.
What number?
We're back from closed session.
No reportable action.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night, Tony.
Okay, guys. All right. So I'm Marianne.